City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Anderson. Berge.
Here.
Brewster.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Imboga.
Present.
Miller.
Here.
Otto.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Schoen.
Here.
Serrano.
Here.
Worthman.
Here.
Thank you. And welcome everyone to the Monday, July 21st meeting of the Eau Claire City Council. It's nice to see everyone here. I know we have a overflow room as well that's probably packed. In case this is your first time or need a reminder on how our Monday night public hearing works, I'll just go over a few things. So first, staff will present on each item, and we have 3 items tonight on our agenda. So, and then when staff will present, and then the council will be able to ask staff questions, and then that's when we'll open up for public comment. And tonight you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak if you would like to speak on each item. There are sign-up sheets, I think actually in the hallway tonight. So if you please sign up, and I will go off of those. I will prioritize those who have signed up, and then I'll open up to council chambers and see if anyone else would like to speak. Let's see, three minutes to speak, like I said, and there are lights that tell you how much time you have left. So green is keep talking. Oh, yeah, there's a nice. And then yellow is you have 1 minute left, and then red is please stop talking. And I will ask you to please stop talking if you go beyond, just to make sure that we get everyone in tonight. We have lots of people to speak, and I want to make sure that we get everyone in, and everyone is at their most alert, as we get on, so making sure just we're respectful for everyone wants to speak. Then also you can only speak 1 time per agenda item. So just to kind of go over, and it's a little confusing. So first we have our Century Code update, and then we do have 2 other tree-related items, but the Century Code update is our first, and then we do have updating tree definitions, which is different, and then we have Waterways and Parks Commission, the definition of that too. So if you are here for the tree ordinance, as it's been called, now that's number 1, the Century Code update. So just so everyone knows to speak when they should speak. So, and then each time, so you, just so one person can speak per item right here. And then we do, to add things more interesting, at the end we have our public comment period, and that's for things that are not on the agenda. So, and that's a little different rules. Those are only for people that live or have a place of business in the city, but that's at the end of the meeting. So, yeah, there's a lot of guidelines there. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. One more thing, if you don't feel comfortable speaking in front of council or you run out of time, if you're last on the list or whatnot, you can always send us an email. There are blue cards probably out on the table out there. You can write down your thoughts, and the city clerk will send them to city council so we can read them before tomorrow's meeting. Okay, so with that, yeah, I think that's it. So we will then move to our first item, which is a Century Code update. And this is a public hearing on an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan and the code of ordinances of the city of Eau Claire, titles 17, 18, and 19, related to the Century Code update. And we have Mr. Ned Noel here. So welcome.
Good evening, City Council, Madam President. Pleasure to be with you this evening for a public hearing. We've reached this point in our process over 2+ years. So kudos to all of you with our ZPAC meetings that we've had, 11 of them, working with the public over time. And so we have this opportunity tonight to learn more about where we're at in the final stage, and then listen to the public as well about their thoughts on the process. So we have this PowerPoint presented or for you this evening. This is a little lengthy, so kind of dig in, but I think it will also help the public to understand all what we've done together over this past year and a half, plus on the actual drafting of the codes. Our consultant, Jackie Berg, is with us from Hauser Levine, fantastic consultant over the process. So we're pleased to have her. And then also who's going to present is Al Rinka, Deputy City Engineer, as well after me. I'm going to cover the comprehensive plan amendment, that part. Jackie's going to cover the LDO, the larger part of the presentation, and then Al's going to cover a bit on the stormwater update to Title 19. So let's get into it, if I can. Oh, okay. There it is. I got it now. Looks like it's working. Okay. So the comprehensive plan amendment, that is required with some of the zoning district changes. So we've been through kind of that process where we've retitled some of the district names, like general commercial has moved into corridor commercial. So some just name changes. R1 residential single-family district has now moved into more general residential or neighborhood residential district. So cleaning up some of those terms need to be reflected in the comp plan amendment. Throughout the process with the Zoning and Policy Advisory Committee, which is also made up of the Plan Commission and City Council members, you guided us in terms of looking at the comp plan, different policies that we've had from our 2015 comp plan and 2022 amendments, and kind of directing through that process about considering different changes like tree preservation, for example, or how to promote compact development. So really, the LDO is reflecting a lot of those different directions that the master plan has told us to consider, that you've vetted, you've thought about, you've told staff to actually put into the code. And so now we're to the point of actually amending a minor amendment to the actual plan, which aligns these new zoning districts with the map. So it's not a major overhaul, it's just a small minor update. And we've included language in the staff report where it was hyperlinked to go back into all of these details, but color-coded in terms of the green additions and then the yellow strikeouts to, again, make everything consistent with the terminology, the new names, the purposes of the actual density. For example, with the low-density residential, now it includes 1 through 4 units, which reflects your guidance on the general residential district and the neighborhood residential district. So all those changes have been made for you for the comp plan amendment. The Plan Commission passed this or recommended it in their consideration back on June 30th. So that's a little bit on that. And so it's very straightforward. It's just amending this land use table, not the map. When we go into the comp plan major overhaul next year, then there'll be a chance to look at revising the whole plan as well. But for this is just related to the land development ordinance. So any questions?
Any questions from? Nope.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn it over to Al Rinka, our Deputy City Engineer, about Title 19 amendments.
Good evening. I will be real short and brief. Biggest thing with stormwater ordinance is we did a lot of cleanup, rearrangement of some existing language that was already in there. We kind of brought everything into one spot. Some of the biggest changes that we made was getting our stormwater ordinance in line with the DNR's ordinance. Makes it a little bit simpler and more streamlined for consultant engineers that are working with our development team. And we had a stormwater management guideline document that was kind of hiding off in a kind of a hard to find place within our website. We brought all that language in, got everything under one spot, again, making things more streamlined. And we have a new land disturbance permit that is going to really not allow these smaller sites to kind of slip through the cracks, sometimes not be noticed. So that there was there'd be cases where I was looking at larger developments. Those are easy to spot. Those are easy to find and talk about. So these new land disturbance permit for sites that are less than 2,000 square feet are now going to come through and be very well noticed by staff, so we don't let anything slip through the cracks. That's really kind of all I have. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Okay. Not seeing any, so thank you.
Okay, you bet. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
It's great to be back in front of you. So I do have more slides than just two, but we'll get through them as efficiently as we can. So we're going to go through a bit of the project process, some of the community engagement that we've done for the last about 2.5 years, get into the purpose and goals, and then the major changes. And then I also want to present some of the recommended amendments that the Plan Commission presented at their meeting on July 30th, or June 30th, excuse me. And we'll also go over the ones that they discussed but didn't end up recommending, just so you're aware of all of that as well. So as you know, my name is Jackie Berg. I'm with Halcyon Levine. I've been the lead consultant on this project. Julie Beth Hines isn't here with us this evening, but she was really the, with Birchline Planning, the planner who led the natural resources, the landscaping, and especially the tree preservation, and helped out with the stormwater ordinance as well. So project process, we kicked off in the summer of 2023. Now we are in the summer of 2025 looking at adoption. So we've done a lot in the past couple of years. We began with a lot of public engagement, and I'll go through more detail on that. Then we had a preliminary recommendations report, which included a lot of analysis of your existing code, analysis of your existing neighborhoods, so that we could prepare recommendations that you all discussed as a group with the Plan Commission and your ZPAC meetings, so that we had really good direction in order to draft these codes in various chunks. So over the years, we brought you 5 different sections of the code to consider iteratively, so that we could have really good discussion and refine the proposed standards as we went. So we started with districts and uses, then got into natural resource protection, landscape and buffer standards, then general development, building design and sign standards, then access and mobility and subdivision standards, and then last but not least, the procedures and definitions. So the LDO is combining your current Title 17 and current Title 18 into a new combined land development ordinance. This is considered a repeal and replacement of those 2 titles. So going more into our community engagement, we've had 4 critical engagement categories throughout this process. The general public, of course, more specific stakeholders, so folks who have experience going through the development process here in Eau Claire, home builders, architects, engineers, et cetera. Boards and commissions, so not just you all in the council and the Plan Commission, but also all of the other boards and commissions that the city has as more recommending or advisory bodies to you all, as well as our policymakers. I've had tons of project communications throughout this process, from press releases. Ned has done several great TV and press interviews, a lot of focus on line engagement, so social media, email blasts. We've had a project website where folks have been able to provide comments via a comment form. We did educational videos, interactive story maps. We had an online questionnaire. We also have presented or posted all of the documents that we've prepared throughout this process to the project website, so those have been available. So whether it's educational memos, the recommendations report, the draft materials, the presentations we shared with you all, that has been up on the website for this whole process as they were developed, so that everyone is able to follow along and stay engaged. In terms of stakeholder meetings, we've had lots of meetings, interviews, and presentations with various stakeholder groups, 11 official meetings with the Zoning Policy Advisory Committee and the Zoning Technical Advisory Committee, which was again made up of industry experts. And then we've also solicited input from all the other boards, commissions, and committees that the city has. We've held 10 public open houses, so one big one at the beginning of the process, 2 big ones at the end of the process, and then lots of kind of topic focused open houses in between. We tried to make them as fun and engaging as possible so we could encourage as many people to stay involved, get involved in the project as we could. We've tried to be as inclusive as possible with our outreach, having specific meetings for people with disabilities, for the Hmong population, focusing on affordable housing, getting out into the community, so more where people are going to be rather than asking people to come to us, so National Night Out, neighborhood meetings, neighborhood tours to really understand what people are wanting to preserve and protect about their homes and their neighborhoods. We held a specific neighborhood zoning workshop in partnership with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Extension. This was a really great opportunity where participants played a game to really understand how adding missing middle housing in the community could benefit the community, could impact the community, and I think it helped to garner some support for that gentle density infill development that we were looking at as a part of the recommendations for the more historic neighborhoods here in the city. We'll get into the project purpose and goals. So there have been lots of kind of purpose statements that we've been using throughout this process. So we wanting to make sure it's a public process, improving user friendliness, and making sure the new standards help to the city meet its goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. A bigger kind of goal of this process was, of course, to align with the comprehensive plan, which really focuses on producing more housing supply, creating neighborhoods that feel more complete, are more walkable, and then taking a more active role in city planning. So that includes producing better site design, improving development certainties, and that's really where we looked at the city's manual. So it's multifamily housing design manual, landscape manual, to see where we could integrate those recommendations, those guidelines, into more clear and objective standards. So it was much more transparent, providing a lot more fair certainty for everyone involved in the process. And I'll go into a bit more detail on exactly how we translated those multifamily housing design manual guidelines into new standards of the code a bit later in the presentation. So kind of condensing those project purpose statements into 3 goals, we have improving housing affordability and availability, enhancing community character, and integrating sustainability. So I'm going to kind of structure the rest of my presentation about the major proposed changes to the code around these 3 project goals. So this is just an outline of the proposed LDO document. We have 14 chapters. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these chapters, of course, just some of the major changes that are proposed throughout. We also have a new proposed zoning map. Ned had mentioned that there were some changes to district names. So general commercial is now the corridor commercial. R1 is now general residential. So you can see that those changes are reflected here on the map. So starting off with the goal of housing affordability and availability, we started off by looking at some of the plans and studies that the city has done in the past. So the Enabling Better Places, a user guide to Wisconsin neighborhood affordability, that led to Eau Claire and the region conducting a housing study. And then that helped to inform the 2022 update to the comprehensive plan. So that all really informed a lot of the recommendations that we made in the preliminary recommendations report and then implemented in the draft ordinance for housing affordability. So a lot of that groundwork that you all established for us was very, very helpful in ensuring that we had great justification for a lot of and great information to inform the revisions that we were proposing. So what is considered affordable housing? So that we're looking at the county median household income. So in Eau Claire County, that's about $72,000 a year for a household. So if you're at 80% of that, you're making about $57,000, and if you're at 60% of that, you make about $43,000 as a household in a year. So the new LDO supports housing affordability in a lot of different ways. So smaller lot sizes support more housing units per acre. With the 1 to 4 unit housing standards that we are proposing, it's up to a 50% increase in dwelling units per acre. And then for multifamily, up to a 20% increase in units per acre. We've also introduced more housing types, proposing narrower roads, which helps to cut down on the cost of acquiring and improving land. We have much lower parking requirements, and Ned will go into a bit more detail on exactly what is driving those changes, but that will help, of course, to save the cost of construction for parking. We have stricter parking maximums. So currently the city has parking maximums, but there's a waiver system in place that is pretty broadly utilized. So there's not a lot of justification that the developer would have to bring in to request to go above the maximum. So now we have new standards. So you have to either provide a parking study or permeable surfacing so that you're helping to reduce some of those stormwater impacts. We also have parking adjustments included. So if you can meet some certain criteria, up to 100% of the parking that the city would require you provide can be waived. Beyond parking, we are also introducing new subdivision formats, and we'll go into more detail on that, but essentially they allow for more clustering, so less land area needed for more housing. And then I think one of the biggest items is streamlined approval procedures. So with all of the clear and objective standards in this new code, moving away from the manual and the guidelines that you all have today will help ensure that staff is able to make more of the decisions to see that or review plans and see whether or not they align with the codes, rather than having to go through more lengthy approval process with multiple public meetings in front of the Planning Commission and in front of you all. So that, of course, will help save time and money as well. So now do you want to get into the parking?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. This is just an extra slide to show. We push back a little bit on some of the narrative out there about the city new code requiring more parking. With the existing code that we're actually lowering those requirements. But what we're seeing at the Plan Commission, and some of you are actually on the Plan Commission, is projects come that are asking for over 25% of existing code. And, you know, that it's up to them in terms of their project market rate, whatever. But the point is that they're going above and beyond what the city's requiring. So these are just 3 examples that we've had fairly recently that have proposed quite a bit of extra parking, whether it's for you know, their own market purposes, but to show if you use roughly a $7,000 price per surface stall to create that stall, that if you're going even 1 stall over, you're costing potentially $7,000 more that the project has to absorb and pass those costs on some way, shape, or form, possibly to the renters. So these are, well, we've had other projects that totally meet the code, the existing code, they're right at what's required. But these are a few examples that are kind of scattered that show that they've gone well beyond what the city requires now. So keep in mind, our new code will actually be reducing less parking. So it'll be interesting to see how the market responds to that. But again, these costs are being brought on by their own project developers, not the city. Any questions on that? Okay.
Okay, so then we've also included deed restricted units. These are to receive some of the incentives, the lowered parking requirements, planned development. You would be required to have deed restricted units. So that would ensure that the city is getting the benefit of the affordable housing for a certain period of time for a certain income bracket. So it's really locking in or guaranteeing that affordable housing over time. So this chart really just helps to summarize the last few slides. I think one of the biggest tasks that you all have been handed with this project is finding that balance between housing affordability, lowering the cost of housing, and trying to meet the city's other goals. So things like tree preservation and improving the character of the community all have to be balanced with the goal of providing more affordable housing in Eau Claire. So we think that we really struck a good balance with the proposed LDO. We have found a lot of ways to create cost savings, but then also introduce in a balanced way new standards that would help the city meet its other goals as well. So now we'll move into housing diversity. So as I had mentioned, we have a lot of new housing types that are proposed within the new LDO. So not just single family detached and single family attached and multifamily, a lot of those missing middle housing types in between. And then for subdivisions, new neighborhoods that are going to be on 20 or more acres of land, we would be requiring a minimum distribution of housing types. So you couldn't just have single family homes or just have duplexes, you'd have to have a mix. So we've divided housing types into 3 categories: single family, missing middle, and multifamily. And you'd need to have some representation from each of those groups for those larger types of subdivisions. Moving into the next goal of improving the character of the community, really looking at compatibility. How can the new LDO promote compatibility with existing development and new infill development? So one of the strategies that the new LDO includes is the residential infill overlay district. So this is proposed to be established on the more historic areas of the historic neighborhoods in the central core of Eau Claire. So within this overlay district, any new housing that's being developed would have to meet standards on orientation, roof type, and off-street parking. And this really ensures that the character of the existing neighborhood is being carried forward. So you have to have your front door, your front porch oriented towards the street, oriented towards the front lot line. You have to have some type of pitched roof, and there are standards for variation in roof type, so you don't have the same cookie cutter infill housing, one right next to each other. And then for off-street parking, you either have to have a detached garage in the rear of the home or parking in the rear of the home, because that is what exists in this neighborhood today. Then in addition to those 3 base requirements, we also have quality enhancements. And you have to choose a minimum number based on your category. So depending on whether you choose 2 from category 1 or a mix of category 1 and category 2, then the number of quality enhancements you'd be required to provide differs. And then you can't duplicate or have the same cookie cutter infill housing one right next to another. You have to have variation there. And we developed this list of quality enhancements from the city's neighborhood plan. So in all of the historic neighborhoods, they have these fantastic neighborhood plans that really call out the character and the architectural qualities of these neighborhoods that they want to preserve and protect. So that's what we have used to develop these quality enhancement lists, so that we're really harkening back to those plans and making sure that any infill development is fulfilling that vision. We are also proposing height transition standards, and this would be outside of the residential infill overlay district, as well as within it, if applicable. So this would require, if you have new development that's going to be substantially taller, the building size, than adjacent development, you provide one of these 4 height transitions. So a step down in building height, increased setback of the building. You use the architecture of the building to help disguise those additional stories through things like dormers or sloping roofs, or you have a bigger screen, more vegetation and a wall or fence to provide more of a physical barrier between the 2 developments. Speaking of screening standards, there are 5 types that are being proposed, different levels of screening, whether it's from a parking lot to the sidewalk or between 2 adjacent properties. These screens are going to help mitigate visual and light trespass, make sure that we have appropriate transitions between land uses, and then enhance the visual quality of the site and surroundings. Next, I want to get into building design. So currently, the city has more subjective design guidelines. I had mentioned the multifamily design manual that the city relies on today. So this is a very qualitative document. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So each of you on the council could read a couple pages of that and think that it means something different, right? Because to you, it could. So that makes it very difficult to enforce. It makes it difficult for applicants to understand what the city is looking for, because it can change so much one person to another. So what we are proposing instead are more objective design standards. So these are going to be measurable requirements. Anyone who is reading them would interpret them in the exact same way. So it provides a lot more fair certainty across the board and helps to streamline the review process. And I'll go into a bit more detail about exactly what I'm talking about. So in your current multifamily housing manual, you have a lot of language about building facade articulation. So they will have pitched roofs, articulated facades, front entrances, windows, porches, balconies, but doesn't really provide any standard for how many, how much, what does it mean, what does that look like? Where in our new code, we have standards on clear roof articulation, clear facade articulation, a menu of options for entryway design, a specified percentage of glazing that would be required. All of these various standards that make it much more clear to everyone involved how exactly you meet this standard or requirement for facade design, rather than this pretty vague language that you currently have in the manual. These are some of the diagrams that help to illustrate what the objective design standards are really asking for. So we have the facade articulation diagrams, the balconies, and then the entryway design as well. Another piece of the manual is asking for common open space. So at least 15% of multifamily needs to be common open space, and it needs to have recreational facilities related to the needs of the persons residing in the housing. Again, not very, except for that 15%, not a lot of clear direction on what recreational facilities qualify. So we are proposing to bring that percentage down just a bit, so to 10% instead of 15, but then really enhance it with better social gathering space requirements. So based off of the size of the social gathering space that you're required to provide, which would be a % of your development site, then you need to meet a certain number of points, and we have a menu of options for how to meet those points, so it's much more clear as to what you need to do to meet those requirements, a lot less of a negotiation between the developer and you all. Keeping going with the manual, standards on building mass and building architecture, again, pretty vague. What we are proposing would be much more objective. So again, with those height transition standards that I mentioned previously, and then clear standards on required and allowed building materials. And then we have some of those example diagrams shown here. So moving on, but staying in this goal of improving the character of the community, we have new site design standards. We have several that are included in our supplemental use standards. So standards for row houses, gas stations, drive-throughs, parking lots, et cetera, all to help improve site design. Our access and mobility standards also address site design as well, so looking at internal access drives, how you access and circulate in a large development so it's safer for everyone involved. Vehicular connectivity between parking lots so that you have fewer turning movements out onto the street to improve safety. And then large parking lot screening so that if you do have 200 or more parking spaces, you need to have some outlot buildings to help screen them. Next, subdivision design. I had mentioned previously that we were proposing new subdivision formats to really promote clustering. So first we have conservation design. So you would have the option of clustering, having smaller lot sizes, narrower streets, and even different housing types than the underlying zoning would allow if a percentage of the site was preserved as conservation area in perpetuity. We're also proposing green courts. So this is a type of clustered housing where the homes front onto a central green and have vehicular access through private alleys. Again, this would be a much smaller lot size than what you would otherwise be required to have, and your kind of recreation space, your backyard, would become that green court in the middle. And then last but not least, we have carriage courts. So instead of all of the homes being centered around a green space, they're all centered around what we're calling a carriage court, but would really be kind of a shared access drive. So all of the garages would be accessed off of this area. And again, just another way of clustering housing to provide cost savings. Another way we are improving the character of development is through the residential park space standards. So this is also really focusing on some goals that the city has in ensuring equitable access to parks. So we have 3 different residential park space scenarios. First, if you're within an existing park service area as identified by the city's comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, then you would pay an impact fee to ensure future improvements to that park. That fee, the exact number of what that will look like, is something that you all will discuss at later meetings in September. And then if you are within a planned park service area, so that would be an area that's identified for a future park in the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, then you would either dedicate land for that park or pay a fee in lieu. There would also be a fee for the activation of the park as well. And then if you're located outside of an existing park service area, outside of a planned park service area, then you'd be required to provide social gathering space based off of those past standards to make sure that there was that outdoor recreation space for the new residents. Subdivision design standards are also really getting at the city's goals for complete streets, more connected communities. So we have new required street cross-section elements, so addressing everything from multi-use paths and sidewalks to street trees and medians with trees, so that we are ensuring that we have a really complete cross-section for all future roads. We also look at internal connectivity. So internal connectivity can really impact whether or not a neighborhood or community is walkable. So this is ensuring that there's a minimum level of connectivity. It's not saying that we can't have cul-de-sacs anymore, we can't have long roads anymore, but it's creating a way to calculate the connectivity within a new neighborhood so that we're ensuring a minimum standard is being met. We're also looking at external connectivity to make sure that future subdivisions are connected to one another so that we don't have kind of enclave neighborhoods, but more of a connected community. So you would need to stub streets at the perimeter of the subdivision so that there are opportunities for future connection. Getting into our last project goal with sustainable design, we have new supplemental use standards for solar energy and wind energy collection systems. We've talked a lot about parking minimums and how those have been reduced, how we've really increased the standard for when you can go above a parking maximum. That'll certainly help with sustainability. And then we have new standards for bird-safe design as well to help protect wildlife. We have new landscape standards, so these have been translated from the city's landscape manual. So these are requiring a combination of landscape elements. Native and pollinator species have been addressed, and green stormwater practices have been incentivized. Moving into the tree preservation and mitigation, so currently the code is proposing that 30% of high-value trees with a diameter of 12 inches or more either be preserved, replanted on or off site, or replaced via a fee in lieu. Again, that's a number that you all will be discussing, setting in your meetings in September. But we know at the ZPAC meetings, J.B. Hines with Birchline Planning had originally proposed about a $400 per caliper inch standard for that fee. And after doing some more comparative community research with other municipalities in Wisconsin, she brought that recommended amount down to $200 per caliper inch, because that just seemed more in line with a lot of other communities here in Wisconsin. So these tree preservation and mitigation standards would apply to all development except for 1 to 4 unit residential lots of less than 10,000 square feet that are also outside of the waterways. So in all other cases where 1 or more high-value tree is removed, you'd have to have a site plan or other city approval and either preserve the tree, replant the tree on or off site, or pay that fee in lieu. Any questions on those major changes before I get into Yeah.
Councilmember Boga?
Thank you, Council. Council President. My question is about why the ordinance exempt a lot under 10,000 feet. The homeowner who lives in south or the north, they pay the same. So that's that. Just help me out to understand, please. Why?
Yeah, certainly. So the 10,000 square feet, that's the current requirement for an R1 lot, or it's just below the current requirement for the R1 lot. So we set that number so it would kind of capture the larger lots in the city, but anything under that size would not have to kind of go through that same process.
Okay. Can I ask?
A follow-up? Yep.
Yeah. Another question I ask is the trees. This is for our Cupid city attorney, Janessa. I've got a lot of email, I think other city councils have got, that people, the homeowners or the residents of Okra feel like, why should we, the city council, impose a fine on somebody's personal tree? If you want to cut the tree, why should we impose $200, $100, $400? Can you explain to us, please?
Well, I can't say why it was suggested necessarily. It wasn't, something that originated from my office, so I won't try to explain the reasoning for it. But I will say we can enact something like that. It is lawful to do that. Enforcement of it would certainly be a challenge, no doubt about that. But there is precedent for it in other communities. I know other codes were looked at in that respect, so it certainly can be done. As to why it's suggested, I won't try to answer that. I would defer to Mr. Noel or our consultant on that one.
Yeah, so I think the something to clarify, the fee in lieu would only come into play if you're not able to preserve the tree or replant the tree on or off site. So those are the two kind of first options, is to find a way to preserve the tree, find a way to replant that tree on your property, on a neighboring property, on a property across town, to donate the tree to the city. Otherwise, then the fee comes in to play. It's not across the board. Anytime a tree is cut down, you have to pay this fee. It's if you're not able to replant it on or off site.
Last question,
Well,
please.
actually, can I go to Councilmember Schoen?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to ask, so in the case of planting trees off-site, if that's somebody's preferred method for compliance with the proposed code, is there any proximity requirement? I think to me that's important, and I don't know that our code specifies that right now.
The current LDO does not specify a proximity requirement, but it certainly could be amended to do so. We have seen other communities have a distance from the site, or if the city has identified like tree equity areas where there are fewer trees in the community than in other areas, that could be a potential replanting location as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Boga?
Yeah, thank you again. So my question again is related to tree. What about the border tree? Me and Heron, we have a tree here. Heron, he doesn't want to cut it. I want to cut it. Are you guys going to solve that problem?
That would certainly be a neighbor dispute, right? It would be today, whether you have the right to cut down the tree or your neighbor does. That's not something that the city would get involved with in terms of whose tree it is or it isn't. But if the tree does ultimately get taken down, then either one of the two property owners would need to replant the tree on site or off-site, or pay the fee in lieu.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Otto?
Thank you. So the species of tree is not a consideration right now, just the diameter.
So the definition of a high-value tree will be considered, it will have a list of tree species that would contribute to that high value. So there's exemptions for things like agricultural trees, things like that. So what we're really trying to preserve are the trees that are really benefiting the environment of Eau Claire. That exact list is still being developed by the city forester, if I'm not mistaken. But it will be a list that the city holds, so it will be specific tree types.
Thank you. Councilmember Serrano?
Thank you, Council President Berkey. I just want to clarify one thing. I think you've said a few times that if you replant the tree, say on another property, I just want to be clear for everybody that we're not necessarily talking about moving the tree, replanting that tree, but when you're saying replanting, you're talking about replacing
Replacing the tree,
the
yes.
diameter inches, 30% of the diameter inches with saplings. Yes?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, yep.
Great. Councilmember Brewster?
So this is sort of a question that I already know the answer to, but I think it's important for the people watching. If your tree is dead, dying, or in danger of falling on your house, then that is exempt as well.
That's correct, yes. So if the city forester comes out and says, yep, that tree is, danger, it's dead, it's dying, et cetera, if it's interfering with your building foundation and is in perfect health, then you still would be exempt from these standards. So yes, thank you for that question.
So I have a follow-up question then on Councilmember Brewster's question. So does that require then the city forester to come out anytime a resident within this parameters want to cut down a tree to determine if it's dying or not?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have more to say?
Not on sustainable design, but I did want to go over the Plan Commission amendments. So there were 5 amendments that were considered and 2 that passed for you all to consider, and I'll go through each of those. So the first one, it did not pass, but there was a proposal to increase the lot of record size, which would be exempt from those tree mitigation standards we were just discussing. So increasing it from the 10,000 square feet in the current code to the 15,000 square feet size. In terms of ZPAC direction, we didn't discuss that 10,000 square foot size in a lot of detail with the ZPAC throughout the process. And for related comprehensive plan policy, really looking at urban forest management and looking to protect undisturbed tracts of old growth trees. So this is a recommendation that did not pass, but something for you all to know was discussed. The second recommendation, this one was passed, and this was to allow 1 to 4 unit residential structures to have a maximum front-loaded garage projection of 15 feet. In terms of ZPAC direction, you all did vote on this matter at your 11th meeting. You had voted to allow for that 15-foot projection for 1-unit dwellings and allow up to a 5-foot projection for 2 to 4 unit dwellings. So something to consider as you discuss that proposed amendment from the Plan Commission. Our third amendment was also passed, and this would require 2 instead of 3 design elements from a list of 7 be met, and that is specifically for apartment complexes or multi-unit building, multi-building development sites. This, again, is not a standard that we discussed in a ton of detail with you all previously, but there was support from the ZPAC to include balconies on this menu of design elements rather than making them a base requirement. So that was something that we discussed. And then for comprehensive plan policy, there is the recommendation of improving the appearance of multifamily housing so it becomes a more acceptable and compatible alternative. I'm grouping the 4th and 5th recommendations together. This is one that did not pass. There was a recommendation to rezone the 3rd Ward and the Randall Park neighborhoods from the neighborhood residential district to the general residential district. At the last ZPAC meeting, we received very strong support from the ZPAC to keep the NR zoning as proposed. You all remember before the ZPAC meeting, you all were asked to rank in order of preference whether you would want to have the GR or the NR, that mix that we have today, carried forward, eliminate the GR altogether and zone everything NR, or eliminate the NR and make everything GR. So there was 2.28, so the average went to kind of keeping the proposed zoning as is, so applying, the mix of general residential and neighborhood residential as the map is currently showing. And then at the 11th ZPAC meeting, we asked if you all wanted to open that back up for discussion or whether you had really had your mind set on that decision. And 73% of the ZPAC members decided that that was not a matter that needed further discussion, that we were kind of decided on that topic. All right, then I just have a little bit on the next steps where we're going to go from here, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Actually, if I do have a question, just a clarification, and I know it was in our packet, which was helpful that the city attorney's office put together, but if you want to go over if there are amendments, and it looks like there will be amendments offered tomorrow, and just that process of going back to Plan Commission and then it comes back to council, and is that the whole zoning code, or is it, so just if you could talk through that, or if, I don't know if Ms. Stromberger wants to talk through that.
If you'd prefer, I'm happy to as well.
Yeah, so if any amendments are proposed and passed tomorrow, the entire code goes back to Plan Commission as a package for their review, public hearing, input, recommendation, then comes back to council. So it could be a back and forth process potentially for, a series of meetings potentially. I know Pure Communities went back and forth up to 10 times.
Wow.
So that's why the memo suggests any amendments be brought forward in a timely manner, ideally
Yes.
tomorrow. But that would be the process.
Okay, thanks for outlining that. Okay. Any other questions from council members? Councilmember Reed?
Thank you, Chair. Just really quick, so I just wanted to clarify something you said, that they thought about, and I'm on the Plan Commission, so I'm not going to say like I wasn't there, but we thought about moving the 10,000 to 15,000, and the idea behind that, I think, was to make sure homeowners weren't affected. But it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, 1 to 4 unit buildings are already exempted, right? That's what you said?
The exemption would apply to 1 to 4 unit dwellings that are on lots less than currently what's proposed as 10,000 square feet.
So, okay, I understand.
Yeah, so it's
Thank you for
dependent on both, right?
Okay.
So if you're a commercial use on a lot that's less than 10,000 square feet, you would not be exempt. But if you're 1 to 4 unit dwelling less than 10,000 square feet, you are exempt. And they were proposing to increase that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, other questions, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
And do you have anything else, Mr. Noel? No? Okay, so we will open it up to public hearing now, so we'll grab the list. Just to remind people, so I'll prioritize those that are signed up. And you have, thank you, City Clerk, for item 1, right? Oh, all of them, okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So we do have 3 sheets of people that are signed up, so we'll go through these 3 sheets first. So you have 3 minutes to speak. You can only speak 1 time. Let's see. I think that's it for, I was going to say 2. So this time is just council members. If they have questions, they can ask the speaker a question. But if any members in the public have questions for staff, that now is not the time for that. So if you can say your question out loud, and then staff will follow up with you at a later time. But we're not going to get into because that will just prolong everything. So council members can ask you questions if we have questions, and if you have questions for staff or something that you've heard, feel free to say it out loud, and council member or the staff will be writing down, and we'll follow up with you. So just wanted to make sure everyone's expectations are the same. So, all right. So, first up, we have Sharon. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Sharon Hildebrand. Sharon Hildebrand, 426 Summit Avenue. Just an FYI before I begin and before the timer begins, to let you know that the neighborhood associations and homeowners, for the first year and a half of this process, were not at the table. So tonight is our first chance to speak to you and let you know. We were informed, we attended meetings and so forth, but we were not considered stakeholders, so I just want to throw that out there. So tonight is our chance to speak. The Chippewa Valley Housing Recommendations describe neighborhoods as the fundamental building blocks of the city. They are the primary setting for civic engagement, city planning, and managing change. They affect public health and economic outcomes for individuals at a very granular level and throughout their lives. The residents and homeowners of the Third Ward neighborhood, which I represent, are concerned that a change in our zoning designation from R1 to NR will degrade the character, home values, and integrity of our neighborhood. For many years, an R1 designation fostered trust in land use policies. It encouraged families to invest and to become homeowners. In fact, in 2002, we asked the city to permit downzoning, to voluntarily reduce if they had an R2 to single-family R1. 233 homeowners or renters did that voluntarily. That's a pretty significant indicator of how important single-family ownership is to residents. In our neighborhood, these single-family homes have been the balance to the R2, R3, and R4 development pressure of the last 50 years. In our neighborhood, if it becomes NR, we will see increased triples and quads, and they will be rentals. The entire area zoned NR, while our balance is at risk. The goal of affordable housing will not be achieved by zoning more Third Ward properties for higher density, since the Third Ward is already the second most densely populated in the city. The opposite will happen. Developers and landlords who already have the capital and resources will buy properties and either raise or remodel them to increase the capacity and the number of rental units. I would, because the income would go to me. Fewer houses, however, will be available to individuals looking to buy a home and to build equity, and that affects future generations. The proposed zoning change singles out the core neighborhoods. It singles out the core neighborhoods by removing the R1 zoning and replacing it with NR, while many of the other neighborhoods in the city will be zoned GR. We are asking to be treated similarly. GR allows single-family or duplex use, which is what much of the Third Ward housing south of Washington Avenue currently is. A GR designation would be the least disruptive and give the city time to assess whether the new code achieves the stated goals. Furthermore, our GR request does not violate the general density concept designed to separate high traffic or commercial areas of the downtown or urban residential from single-family or smaller neighborhoods. In the Third Ward...
If I could ask you to finish up, please. Here.
1 minute. In the Third Ward, the majority of R1 residents are already separated with the natural and man-made features: Chippewa River, State Street, University, Washington Avenue, Harding Hill. Our request to be zoned GR meets the goal of general density without disrupting the character of the Third Ward. On behalf of the Third Ward, I am asking you to reconsider the NR zoning and apply a GR designation for the areas south of Washington Avenue. I'm asking you to carefully consider the long-term effect of this vote on the future of our city's core neighborhoods. I'm asking you to remember that once you create such huge changes, you cannot easily walk them back. Consider the effect your decision will make and apply the Hippocratic rule. First, do no harm.
Okay. Thank you. Susan Miller. If we really could keep it to 3 minutes, I'd be really appreciate that. There's a lot of people we want to get through.
It's short.
Thank you.
I am the current chair of the Third Ward Neighborhood Association, and I just want to briefly bring up why keeping the Third Ward as general residential is one reason why. It's historic preservation. And why is historic preservation so good for our community? Well, it creates revenue from tourism. An average of $336.24 is generated per person per night from historic tourism. And these are facts that you've got the references for. I didn't just make them up, although I'd like to. So the local economy is boosted, and that leads to increased property values as well as tax-based revenues for the city. Historic preservation creates jobs. Not only do we have architects, engineers, and planners who are going to benefit from it, but also people in the building trades. There's a real niche market for people who can do historic preservation building. And lastly, I'd like you to consider sustainable housing. We're talking about becoming carbon neutral. Preserving houses is carbon neutral. You keep houses out of the landfill if you don't tear them down and you actually reuse them for the future. Reuse of existing houses also reduces the need for new construction. Interesting thing I heard from Stephanie was old houses burn slower than new houses. So there's another good reason to reuse our existing housing that is there and is present in our central core neighborhoods. I got a minute 15. It also allows for more affordable housing, as existing houses offer more amenities than what you would get with new construction. You can't build new and sell it or rent it cheap. It just isn't going to happen. The other aspect to it is that if you are a person who is somewhat handy, if you buy a distressed house and you put sweat equity into it, not only can you spread the cost of refurbishing that house over a period of time, but you also can do it on your own and make it affordable, and you can purchase it at a price point that is affordable. All of these things were suggested in the 2022 housing study that was done in Eau Claire, but they're not addressed in our Century Code. All of these factors contribute to the cultural benefit of the community. GR zoning supports historic preservation of our core neighborhoods. And to quote from the Historic Preservation and Affordable Housing Study, there is today almost universal agreement that urban renewal demolition of large tracts of downtowns was misguided, self-defeating, and ultimately a failure as a revitalization strategy. There's a little more to that quote, but that's my time limit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I appreciate the clapping, but we're not gonna, it just gets divisive in a weird way, so just thanks. Okay, sorry for all the rules, but just trying to be respectful for everyone and everyone's viewpoints. So, Cindy Harper? Am I saying that wrong? Oh, okay, good. You just tucked back in there.
Cindy Harper, I live at 2231 Hatch Street in Eau Claire. There are a number of Wisconsin communities that have enacted standalone tree ordinances to manage and protect their urban forests, including Madison, Stevens Point, Fond du Lac, Green Bay, Fitchburg, Onalaska, Watertown, Medford, Mequon, and Buffalo City. These cities range in population from 283,000 to Buffalo City's whopping 1,017 residents. The following are 3 tree protection ordinances in Wisconsin summarized. City of Mequon. It shall be unlawful to remove, injure, or destroy, or undertake any procedure that may cause the death or substantial destruction of a specimen tree, any specimen tree, that is their terminology for our high-value tree, located anywhere on any land in the city of Mequon without the express written permission of the City Planning Commission. Town of Dunn. Construction of new buildings and structures shall not cause heritage trees, again, that's high-value tree, to be removed without written permission of the tree board and shall not significantly infringe upon the root system of heritage trees to an extent that is likely to damage the tree or jeopardize its survival. City of Onalaska. Where possible, trees should be preserved along lot lines, rears of homes, and common open space. Design considerations should be made to foster tree preservation and future home buyers. These tree protection ordinances sound to me to be quite generous, not restrictive, and if these cities, both large and small, can do it, why can't Eau Claire? Don't allow a last-minute campaign filled with misinformation to sway your vote. There have been dozens of citizen volunteers and others working on tree protection language for 2 years. I would ask that you honor their efforts and engagement. Home values rise where canopies stay. Our grandchildren will thank us someday. High-value trees deserve our protection. It's common sense, not government overreaction. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Like your poem. Thank you. All right, Jamie Larson. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Jamie Larson, 620 Garden Street in Eau Claire. And I'm here to speak about the tree ordinance as well. To me, the purpose of the tree ordinance is to protect the trees that live in Eau Claire, that exist in Eau Claire. I guess they live here too, don't they? I became concerned when developers cleared large areas of all vegetation and threw up these huge developments. Many of my friends and neighbors felt the same way. I've heard this voiced all around me at the neighborhood association meetings that you've gone to, the public open houses, and the city council meetings. We've asked for design plans to protect our trees. You've heard it too. And I haven't heard anyone say, please, let's take out more trees, you know. To me, the objective of this ordinance is for developers to be more thoughtful about planning around high-value trees. It doesn't matter if the development consists of single-family homes like those in Lewis Creek, twin homes like those off Jeffers Road, or multiple unit dwellings. It's about clear-cutting huge areas of land. It's about the rights of all people to enjoy the many benefits that trees offer right in their own yard. The ordinance states that if a tree of a specific species, over 12 inches in diameter are cut down during this development, a couple new, very much smaller trees be planted in its place, or a fee is paid. And this doesn't apply to any old tree. It doesn't include damaged or diseased trees. As defined right now, it doesn't include white or red pine, silver maples, aspen, paper birch, and others. A 12-inch diameter at breast height tree would be 30% of that would be 4 inches, or two 2-inch saplings. This is at breast height, not at base, and I'm short. This is a pretty good sized tree. When you're driving home or before the vote tomorrow, take a look around your neighborhood. How many trees would be included? If we raise that, this is 14 inches of a specific species of trees. Okay, so I believe that the ordinance won't have a big impact on affordable housing because affordable housing units are usually placed in downtown areas or in previously developed areas through infilling or vertical housing near available resources. If you look, our downtown does not have many trees, especially those meeting the criteria for tree replacement. To my understanding, this focus should be on large developments, not on homeowners with small individual lots, the residents of Eau Claire. The ordinance is meant to encourage thoughtful planning, and retain our mutually benefit tree canopy. Please don't create so many loopholes in this ordinance that it becomes meaningless. We cannot become a city we want to be by continuing down the same path.
Thank you. Then Eleanor Wolf. Welcome.
Eleanor Wolf, 1810 Birch Street, and I've come before you many times on this subject. And Jamie just covered everything that I would have covered, and in a great way. So I don't need to go into why we need to preserve our trees. We've heard that story. I just wanted to clarify some misinformation that was out there coming from some of the local media, and it's been covered, I think, in the in the introduction this evening that not everyone who wants to take down a tree under this code, under this ordinance, not everyone who wants to take down a tree has to get a permit. And that's not, or pay $400 per inch to replace the tree that they want to take down. That's not true. That's not in the code. And the reason being, the code has the 10,000 square foot maximum lot. Under that 10,000 square feet, the homeowner does not come under the code, and they can take down trees as they need to. So wanted to clarify that, and I think the introduction this evening just covered a lot of those points and made them clear, and I'm glad for that. So I'm totally in favor of the tree ordinances. We need them. I don't want to see in the future, I don't want to see bulldozed stacks of trees where a developer comes in and just takes everything off of the property. So thank you. Thank you for all your hard work and the many, many meetings that you had to attend getting this new code, and especially the tree preservation code. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. And we have Steve Bechtel. I say it wrong.
Pretty close again there,
Okay,
Emily.
I'm
Pretty
trying.
close. Dear
Just keep
City
showing
Council
up.
members, you are tasked with the future. It's called the Century Code because it has far-reaching impact and long-lasting import. What you decide will either potentially safeguard our community's future for decades or kick the can down the road. You can fix things now, or somebody else can fix them later, or perhaps they don't get fixed at all. The future, tough ask. Will you do it at 100% or 50%? Will you commit or will you kowtow? At this moment, you are set to make history. The tree protection language as currently written is generous, well-researched, empathetic, pragmatic, wise, far-sighted, embracing, and historic. For more than 2 years, we have worked together to make it just so. Just last week, the Sustainability Advisory Committee voted unanimously to support the tree protection language as is. Eau Claire will have stronger tree protections than Altoona or Chippewa Falls because we rose to the challenge. Brava. You will hear from people tonight, even a pair of council members, that trees are not economic boons, but economic boondoggles. They will attempt to convince you that removing critical tree protections will guarantee an increase in affordable housing, at least for those who can afford it or profit from it. You will hear from people tonight who will complain that it's their yard, and how dare you tell them what to do with it. People here tonight will complain that tree protections will violate their freedom or cut into their profit margins, and by gum, they don't like it. It's all a plot to take total control. That's one way to look at community. I'm for me. Who are you for? Trees, however, are not self-centered. They are selfless. They are model of giving. If trees were invited to speak, the message would be, it's all about us, our neighborhoods, our future. A living tree sequesters carbon in its trunk and branches. Every tree counts. Every inch of a tree counts. Every tree removed is a loss of sequestration and a carbon neutrality setback. Don't go back. Go forward. The pass is across the street and 2 blocks down. Entire city blocks composed of concrete and metal and glass, and not a wisp of leaf or blade. I have heard the argument that if we embrace tree preservations in Eau Claire, then we will encourage urban sprawl. That's like saying that if we go after meth labs in Eau Claire, they will retreat to Eau Claire County. That if we address human trafficking or hunger or crime or racism here, it will only pop up somewhere else. Should we not dutifully respond? Shall we permit any injustice to thrive where we have the power to embolden justice? Shall timidity rule unchallenged? If our house is on fire and the future trapped inside, do we stand outside the heat and play rock, paper, or scissors, or do we rally to the rescue? If there are drug dealers on my street corner, my response is to reclaim my street corner. Well, this is my street corner. This is my responsibility. The future is now. The future is my choice, and I make that choice generously, courageously, and completely. I ask you, my neighbors, to rally to the rescue. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have, Steve, a council member, just a second. I'll call. Councilmember Mboga has a question for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve. I wanted you to speak on what about if the threshold is raised from 12 dph to like 18 or 15?
Well, first I'd say, is that a guarantee of housing affordability, right? It is a guarantee that we lose sequestration and carbon sequestration, and we're going backwards on that. And so those 2 inches matter because we're talking about volume, not just the diameter, right? A 12-inch tree is smaller than a 14-inch tree. And so all those things matter. Every inch matters. And that's why we're talking about it and trying to hold the line on that 12.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Okay. Liz Spencer?
Hi there.
Hi, welcome.
Well, the red light, how's that?
That's
Can
good.
you hear me now? You know what? I can't hear all of you guys back there, so especially women with smaller voices, maybe speak up so your audience can hear. I mean, I was just asking, that's all. So hi, some things have already been mentioned from my little written comments here, so I'm going to try to deviate from them, but still make sense. No promises. So the overarching theme of what my remarks might be would be, you've probably heard this, in God we trust, all others must bring facts. So keep that in mind, I guess. That is the other old saying is, you are stuck between a rock and a hard spot, between the environment on the one hand and our quality of living in our city and a for-profit industry. And I think I might as well say it, I'm talking about home builders and realtors who have a sort of a narrow interest. I mean, their interest is profit, not necessarily the big picture. And that's not their fault. That's what they're there for. So I'm not blaming them. That's just the way it is. So I have been very distressed over the misinformation that I have heard from our media, the Leader Telegram, our 2 television stations, and the complexity of this code as it has written. And it has to be complex. It is an ordinance. It has to have rules. It has to have definitions. But it's quite complex. But the complexity leads itself to a lot of misinformation. There have been rumors, and several of those have been addressed, flying around, which are mostly just not true. So I ask you to please consider the facts. And part of one of those big facts is consider the coming climate change and what's going to happen. And I'm not going to go into the scientific benefits of trees. You've probably heard that from others, and I hope that's in the packet of information that you've received. So a group of experts, not including me, has been working on this for 2 years to come up with a reasonable code. So I ask you, as you vote, not to dilute this with so many amendments to make it meaningless. Let's keep our tree preservation intact for all the reasons that you have heard. And let's be aware that we don't want to be totally influenced by the wishes of a for-profit industry. 1 second. All
Good.
red.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's
Okay, Joe Mauer? Okay, that was quick. Paul Holsinger? Hi, welcome.
Hello, thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Paul Holsinger. I live in the city of Eau Claire, 704 Mitchell Avenue. I own Holsinger Homes in Altoona, and I'm a member of CDPG Developers. I wanted to express my concerns about several items in the new zoning code that will add significant cost to housing. While I believe the intention of the new zoning code is good, the practical application of the code to real-world situation has unintended consequences. Minimum landscaping standards, multi-building development standards, garage projection limitations, The tree preservation ordinance and park impact fees all add significant cost to housing. In some cases, a change does more good than it does bad, such as minimum landscaping standards that are proposed. While I still feel this standard will negatively impact housing affordability, I agree that the landscaping standards are reasonable. Multi-building development standards add significant cost to the most affordable housing type, and should be carefully reviewed. Garage projection limitations add cost, limit design flexibility, and force developers to create plans that will only work on wider lots, offsetting the gain that might otherwise be realized by using smaller lot sizes afforded under the new code. The tree preservation ordinance is too strict. It places additional cost on new development beyond what is already being added with the minimum landscaping standards. Consider increasing the minimum DBH, reducing the percentage of DBH to be replaced, and lowering the fee for non-replacement. Park impact fees are a new tax on new construction. This new tax targets new construction only, which further worsens housing affordability. Aside from eliminating these fees entirely, I ask that you consider starting these fees at a much lower rate, such as 1/10 of the current proposed amounts. This would allow housing prices a chance to absorb a portion of the new fees into their pricing structure more gradually. If the City of Eau Claire moves too far in one direction with the new zoning code, surrounding communities that are more friendly to housing will thrive, and Eau Claire may realize in the coming years the unintentional impacts of not vetting the new code thoroughly. I ask that you please support the housing affordability amendments that are being proposed. While it is unlikely that any of these amendments will actually make housing cost less than it does today, the amendments that are proposed will make the increase in cost less than if we implement the code as it's currently written. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have Tim. Okay, another quick one. Luke? Hi, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Luke Mahal. I'm the owner at Tree Savvy, and I just want to preface this with saying we are very pro-preservation. I would say 10% of our business right now is actually plant healthcare / tree preservation. Most of my concerns are actually logistical. You already, I feel, have an overworked forestry department. It can be cumbersome to just communicate sometimes. Nonetheless, you're talking about potentially making, I don't know how many licensed tree care companies there are for Eau Claire, but I'm guessing it's probably in the 30 to 40 range. And our volume of removal is probably 40 to 50% of our income. So you're talking a lot of trees. If we need to get permission to start taking trees down from anyone in the forestry department, you're going to need more people. My other question is what if there is a discrepancy or a dispute of I have track tree risk assessment certified guys on my staff that can go out and evaluate a tree, and we say that's not a good tree, and the city forestry department says it is, the tree stays and now something happens, who's liable, who has to foot the bill for any storm damage or any damage, et cetera, on those lines. So the other issue I would really encourage you to look at is with the proposed replanting. There's a lot of different standards in replanting and aftercare, and if you want these trees to thrive, you're going to have to spend some time and money on them afterwards. So I guess that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a question for you, Councilmember Brewster.
Thank you, Council President. In your experience working in the city of Eau Claire, do you see a lot of healthy trees that aren't a risk to buildings or foundations or anything being removed on a whim?
There's definitely some. In general, just a slight brief history of the city of Eau Claire. The a lot of the town was wiped out in 80 with the tornado, so a lot of our trees are in that 40 to 50 year range at best. There's a lot of structural defects in a lot of trees, especially in some of the certain neighborhoods. Putnam Heights has got a lot of matured silver maples that we could find problems with that would be concerning, you know, where if, you know, again, there's liability there if someone comes in and says, nah, that's, you know, you don't see a pocket of rot or, you know, codominant stem or a whole slew of other issues. But we have people that say, yeah, I just don't want to rake the leaves up anymore. I mean, it's their yard. I mean, do I want to see it? No, but I mean, it is their prerogative. So, does that answer your question? So.
Okay.
Anything else?
I don't see any. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you
for
for your
coming
time.
down. Yep. Then Dan. I'm glad you knew I was talking about you because I wasn't quite sure. S.
Couldn't say that last name, right? Dan Schwegel. I'm a property owner on 2408 Vine Street, and it was a residence for a number of years, converted over to commercial property here about 4 years ago. And I'll get into the potential ramifications of what that would look like. I did go on to look at the biodiversity group videos that was funded partially by the Pablo Foundation. And one of the first videos I watched, it said that city is known, or Eau Claire is known as the city of trees for the past 40 years. And only second to Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So, you know, great job there. But that right there said, why do we need this? We're already doing a great job. You know, we didn't need legislation and rules to make this a tree city. We need good residents and a good community, which I think we have. The property that I had on 2408 Vine Street, I counted before I had to take down the final group of trees, 35 stumps. I think there's a total of 35 to 40 trees. If that averaged 14 inches per tree, that would have been about $58,000 at the per inch rule. If it was $400 per tree, that is as it's stated in the code online, which was very confusing to me to try to figure this out, that would have been $14,000. I measured a tree that's left there today. It's a 48-inch silver maple. That thing, you know, how much would that cost if I had to take that down? So that would also indicate that I would have to plant 147 trees on that property. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's what we need. I think we need to just use sound judgment. I think that as we are a city of trees, I think that's great. I would think this whole tree ordinance should be scrapped just based on that alone. I'm okay with the landscaping mandate, but I don't know what the timing is on that. This project that I did would have made it impossible to do at another, you know, 14,000 to stretch, 58,000. It's like, heck no, I'm leaving the city. The property was very run down. It wasn't pretty. Now it's beautiful. I still have some nice trees around the area, and I think it's also the prerogative of the property owner to determine whether or not they want or need trees on their property. I was in Bemidji, Minnesota a few weeks ago, and I lived through that storm. That was a Category 3 hurricane type storm. It would be very easy to have PTSD on trees overhanging your building after you go through something like that. So I appreciate the time and the consideration, but I would say on a tree ordinance at this point, the way it's currently being worded, I'd say no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then John. Hello, welcome.
Hello. My name is John Hildebrand. You already heard from my smarter half. I live on Summit Avenue. I've lived there for 40 years. You've got a lot on your table. You got to think about tree diameter and roof height and front stoops, but what my most concerned about is that in all these details, you forget that zoning ultimately is about people, about their lives, about their futures. And the people that I'm most concerned with are first-time home buyers, of which I was one 40 years ago. I had rented in the city for about 5 years, and then my circumstances changed. I got married. We wanted to have a family. We didn't have much money. The state at the time had a program for first-time home buyers, and we qualified for that. And there were houses in the third ward that were affordable, and by affordable, I don't mean as rentals. We bought a small house on a small lot and lived there happily for a number of years until 2 more kids came along, and we were just bursting at the seams. We needed a bigger house. We could afford the bigger house only because we were able to buy the smaller house to begin with. My concern by changing R1 to NR is you're closing the door on people like who I used to be 40 years ago. You're going to make home ownership strictly the venue of people with money. There are all kinds of economic incentives in the zoning plan to get rid of the small house on the small lot and replace it with a fourplex. I mean, it'd be a great investment. But the only person who would build equity would be the developer. And when we're talking about home equity, it's the biggest investment most people make in their lives. And it's generational. You can pass it on. What does a renter pass on? He can't. I want you to think about the long-term effects of that zoning decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Judy? I guess, is it Judy? Teskey? Judy? Or Judd? It's a Judd. Yeah, maybe they're upstairs. I'll give this. Maybe they left.
This little group came down from upstairs.
Oh, so there's no one upstairs? Okay.
Maybe not speaking on item 1.
Okay.
They all came down.
Well, I will pass Judy or Jed. Oh, yes, great. Jed, yep. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Jed with Jed's Tree Service. First off, I'd just like to start, we try our best to protect customers' property and care for their trees and uphold the highest standards set forth by the tree care industry. I've worked in the tree care industry for 12 years. I've worked with state foresters doing management on MFL cuts for larger properties. And I'd just like to, in my opinion, the proposed ordinance for the tree care cutting will have a negative impact on the community in many ways. I'm just going to go in a few. For one, the DBH and that is all whatever it is, but the price per inch is going to negatively affect people because they already can't hardly afford to cut trees. When you're talking 300 to 500% increase on what it would cost to cut down a tree, say 25 inches on top of my fee, to cut it down, there's a lot of people that can't afford that, which will result, I believe, in some people either not cutting the trees and creating hazards, but also probably intentionally killing the trees so they can get where the provision for dead or dying trees, which could spread disease like oak wilt and stuff like that, which would be not good. And I believe in proper tree care but I don't want to see stuff like this happen from a lack of not being able to afford to cut down trees. Luke mentioned earlier a little bit about logistics. We do probably 300 to 500 estimates biweekly, and I don't know how that'd be possible to come out. There'd have to be a lot more staff on hand to even handle that kind of thing on the city side. As far as the environment goes, I see people. We've done quite a bit of tree clearing, not necessarily bad trees or diseased trees, but for people that want to put in solar energy. And those trees would have to, not necessarily dead or dying, but they would need a permit. And on a lot of projects like that, it's upward. It'd be $30,000, $40,000 to clear enough trees to make that even possible. So I would ask that the council would reconsider a lot of, mainly the price on this, and maybe make it more affordable, like a $30, $50 permit to get trees removed instead of by the inch. It's going to make it unaffordable for the average homeowner. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Scott Rogers. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Scott Rogers. I'm Vice President, Governmental Affairs at the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a resident of the city downtown. I've lived here 23 years and live on Putnam Street. Representing the local business community, housing supply and affordability is a top policy priority of ours. We've been following and involved in the Century Code update. We've provided letters and other public comments along the way, including a letter we sent to you on Friday with some more comprehensive comments. But we do want to emphasize a few points. First, the decision the City Council will be making about the Century Code update may be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to align our city policies to encourage the increase in supply and improvements in affordability that we desperately need in housing. We recognize the work that has gone into the new code, and we encourage its adoption. That said, we do believe it's important for the council to approve amendments that will address those areas where the current draft could inhibit infill development, could significantly increase the already challenging construction costs, add red tape, and ultimately make it harder to improve housing supply and affordability. Those changes include approval of the 2 amendments that were recommended by the Plan Commission. We are concerned about the parkland dedication and impact fees, which we encourage be delayed until the current assessment of the city's parks is completed. And we're concerned about addressing the tree preservation standards. We do encourage adoption of the amendment being proposed by Council Members Schoen and Johnson, which seeks to balance environmental stewardship and housing affordability. On the latter point, I think everyone agrees that tree cover is a desirable community asset. But zoning is a less effective means for achieving those results. There are community-wide strategies and incentives for tree preservation that would more realistically achieve the same benefits. Instead, draconian tree preservation standards could inhibit the kind of infill housing that is actually better for the environment, more financially productive for the community, efficiently uses existing infrastructure, and lessens pressure on sprawl. Finally, it's important to remember that we live within an economic and social system where one decision in one area has consequences in other parts of the system. The City of Eau Claire's zoning code will apply only within the City of Eau Claire. The policies of other governmental jurisdictions surrounding us can be different, and any city policies that inhibit housing or make it too expensive could push development to other places. So we thank you for the chance to weigh in, and we offer best wishes on arriving at thoughtful decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. We have Jane. Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much. Jane Moeller and 131 South Barstow, the Chippewa Valley Biodiversity Partnership Chair. In honor of the Lorax, in a town called Eau Claire where the tree branches sway, the kids crowd the sidewalks with laughter each day. Biodiversity's partners with roots running deep stand thousands together, a green future to keep. The Century Plan has been crafted with care by locals and leaders who chose to play fair. ZTAC and ZPAC, we met face-to-face to shape a shared future that cared for this place. We studied the numbers and shared all the facts. No shortcuts, no sidesteps, no veering off tracks. We planted a vision where green space began, a bold tree protection and growth-minded plan. The trees catch all the rain. They temper the heat. They make every pathway feel peaceful and sweet. They clean up the air. They slow down the floods. They cradle the sparrow, the fox, and the buds. But tree after tree now falls faster than planned. Replacements are planted, but only half stand. If we chop without care, if we don't pause to ask, we're breaking our promise, betraying the task. On Goff Road's long stretch, the green's been replaced. The woods are now asphalt, all shading erased. We're not anti-growth. We're not saying no. We just want to plan before bulldozers go. When many object and say, it's my yard, exemptions go easy, but the regrowth is hard. To comfort a few, we weaken the shield, and soon leafy arches give way to bare fields. So here's our ask, do better, be wise, support 12-inch DBH, don't loosen the size, and if one must be felled, then plant with good sense, replace DBH inches at least 30%. Tree laws are barriers, they're bridges of trust. If we want to grow forward, protect them, we must. So here is Eau Claire. Don't let hope pass you by. Let's stand up together, reach high towards the sky, for someday our children will sit in the shade and thank us for keeping the promise we made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Peter. Let me write that down.
Peter?
Yep, Peter.
I have a Peter.
Yep.
Peter Hobley, 1323 South Farwell Street. Honorable council members, the new zoning ordinance is nearly 500 pages. In it, one thing sticks out, the elimination of single-family zoning. In hoping to learn from what other growing cities are doing in response to housing, I could not find one case where other cities fully eliminated single-family zoning in the state of Wisconsin. We've heard a lot about gentle density over the last 2 years. How about gentle rezoning? Don't turn already high-dense areas in the historic districts to NR, which allows up to a fourplex where once stood a single-family home. How many of your constituents even know that this would be possible on all collector roads throughout the whole city and land adjacent to public land? You should be consistent and fair. ZPAC said they didn't want sprawl, yet the city council approved far-flung developments of Orchard Hills and Creekside against overwhelming opposition. ZPAC's goal is to eliminate exclusionary zoning, yet neighborhoods who have covenants are not affected by this. ZPAC wants people where they can walk to shop. The historic districts are not within walking distance of shopping for food or clothing staples. Proponents, in response to our concerns about more density in historic neighborhoods, say, well, that actually won't happen due to cost and unprofitability. Well, then don't do it. So much of this Century Code is good. Reconsider eliminating single-family zoning. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we may want to look at what other Wisconsin cities that are fast-growing have done and why they haven't eliminated single-family zoning. And I support Councilman Brewster's amendment for GR zoning in Randall Park and the 3rd Ward. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Let's see. Roger? Is there a Roger here? Am I saying it wrong? Daus, D-A-U-S. Let's give you maybe a minute. I think it's Roger, right? Is that Roger? Yeah. Well, I'll talk slowly. Maybe they'll show up. Go on to our second page. So that was the first one. And then, so let's see, we have Pat Smith. So we'll go to Pat. So welcome.
Good evening, and thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Pat Smith, owner of Eau Claire Insulation and the government.
He's saying maybe you want to speak into the microphone.
I'm the
Thank you.
government chair's affair for the Chippewa Valley Home Builders Association. The association's mission is to build better housing industry through promotion, advocacy, and education, and that's why we're here tonight. One of the original goals of the Century Club was to produce more housing supply, diversity of choices, and affordability, which falls in line with the association's mission. And while steps were made to try to address this, specifically with smaller lot sizes and darkness, I'm so good I can read it.
Oh, okay.
Reduce setbacks and a number of other things that Ned and Jackie mentioned in their presentation. A number of the items in the code work in direct opposition to affordability. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of affordability in today's world.
You can pause just a sec. So it's kind of distracting. No, I think they're leaning against the light. So, oh no, nope. It was just an accidental lean. Okay, all right. If you
Okay.
want to, yes. So if you want to restart, that was a little distracting. So,
You want me to start over?
well, or back. I don't know.
I'll
how
just
far
go
you're-
back. Again, we just
Okay.
touch base with the goals. While steps are made to try to address this, specifically with smaller lot size and reduced setbacks and other items that Ned and Jackie brought up in their presentation, there are a number of items in the code that work directly in its opposition to affordability. I cannot emphasize the importance of affordability in today's world. We've all experienced inflation over the last few years. The average price of a new home pushing $400,000. We must take responsible decisions to lower the costs, not increase them. According to a study done by the National Association of Home Builders, a $1,000 increase takes 31 people out of the market for that home. In addition, federal, state, and local regulations account for about $80,000 of the cost of a new home. I mean, that's a substantial number. We've got to work on ways to bring that down. Again, this was mentioned by Jackie, with the average family income in the Eau Claire area being in that low 70s and the cost of housing today, we have responsibility to future generations to do what we ever can to make all types of housing more affordable. In addition, this will make our city more desirable to attract workers and business. What can we do? I ask you to support the two amendments that are approved for recommendation by the Plan Commission and to support the amendments that some council members are bringing forward. The garage standards have been a big discussion point through this process, but the current proposed code of 5 feet would end up with wider building design and larger lots. This will add costs to these home in direct opposition to the goals of affordability. The current proposed amendment has changed that from 5 to 15. While any design standards limit diversity and increase in cost, the 15-foot is way better than the 5. And if we stayed at 5, that'll take most twin homes out of the market. So this amendment would provide more flexibility in the concurrent proposed code. I'm also asking you to support the proposed amendment to the multifamily building standards that would reduce the number of items on the list of features from 3 to 2. This would ensure diversity of the exterior building while not requiring expensive features like patios and balconies, which drive up the rents by as much as 10 to 20%, which is hundreds of dollars. So we're asking you to support these two amendments that the Plan Commission has already approved and to help housing affordability in the proposed code. We have a responsibility to all future generations of the community to make decisions in the best interest for everyone in the community. If we don't make some of these amendments to the code, I'm afraid the city will see a dramatic reduction in building permits as surrounding communities have way less restrictive building designs. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question for you, just Councilmember Mboga.
Thank you for speaking to us. I'm wondering, you guys, you wrote a letter or an email supporting 12 DPH. Did you guys do that?
Supporting what?
The 12. Did your organization write an email supporting the 12 DBH? Is what Councilmember Mboga is asking.
I do not believe so. Christina's going to talk a little more here, but I do not believe that we did that.
Okay.
Nate,
We were
do you know
proposing.
anything about it?
Oh, just a minute.
Oh, 20.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 20.
Yeah. that was the 20 was what we had originally been talking.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Misunderstanding was, yeah.
Anything
Okay.
else?
Doesn't look like it. So
Alrighty.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Then Sean. Hello, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sean Bohan. I'm a business owner here in Eau Claire, 1360 International Drive in Sky Park, and I'm here to voice a concern about park impact fees. I've been a civil engineer in the Chippewa Valley area for about 25 years. I've owned Advanced Engineering Concepts for 16. And I work with a lot of developers in the area doing multifamily and single-family developments. And we're just concerned about the price, the potential price and stuff that these impact fees would end up having. Wanted to kind of give you two examples on projects that would be impacted. I do realize that there hasn't been a fee set yet, but I know through the park assessment, there were some numbers and stuff that were discussed. So with those numbers, that's what I'm going to basically relate these costs for and these impact fees. First one is the Cannery District Apartments. Located on Oxford. There's 273 multifamily units and stuff there, 2 buildings, 140, 133. The price that they would end up having to pay for these park impact fees would be $459,186. So when they're going to pull in a building permit for one of those 140 unit or 133 unit, they're having to pay $250,000 in impact fees. The second one would end up being Prairie West Development. It's located on Prairie Lane, a few blocks from Jeffers Road. It's currently under development right now. It has a mix of single-family, some twin homes, and also some multifamily. There's a total of 223 units. The cost for that would end up being $417,411. Understand that both of these are within that half mile of a city park, so they would end up being basically subject to those park impact fees. So just those large numbers, you can understand, you know, the possible effect and stuff on those developments. I know within the park impact fee assessment, there's a section that basically discussed the rationale and justification for these fees. They were discussed earlier with your consultant about the ways to be able to make developments more affordable. While I'm not in a disagreement with those items, which ended up being more density, smaller lot sizes, smaller roads, less parking, and streamline approvals, it takes time. When you're changing a single-family lot from a minimum of 8,000 down to 3,000, there's not a lot of people in this community and stuff that are going to have a 3,000 square foot single-family lot. We worked on the Tenema Homes project along Folsom that is affordable. Those with those homes and stuff on there are 6,000 square feet. So you're basically saying half of what that ends up being. So it takes time, but the park impact fees will be basically immediate. You know, time for that density, time for the smaller lots, the road systems. I know it was discussed about them being 40 foot in width. There's alleyways that basically would have to end up going in. So I don't really see a savings with making a smaller road of 40 foot right away width.
Can you
So I'm
finish up?
just here, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just here to voice our concern, and I hope in September that you don't have the park impact fee.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Thanks for coming down. Anyway, Jeff? Hello, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good evening, council folks. Could I ask, before you start the timer, could we get this device to be illuminated?
Well,
Usually
you-
it works against my time waiting for technology.
If it works, sometimes
It's
it
worked
does
the
not.
last 2 times,
Yeah.
so
Well, you,
odds are good. I'm hopeful.
Okay, so it's not working, I guess. Sorry. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I know. It's
Okay. All right, thank you anyway. Thanks for checking, I appreciate
yeah.
that.
That microphone might work better though if you want
Okay.
to talk into that. It's a little taller too.
That'll work. Thank
Yeah.
you. My name is Jeff DeGrave. I live at 133 Lake Street. Following Mr. Hildebrand's comments, I'd like to say this is the first house my wife and I have ever bought, and our brush with greatness on Lake Street is that it's the only single-story house on the entire street, meaning it was the only one we could afford because it was an affordable house in Randall Park. I won't rehash what other folks have said, but I would like to say maybe it's time to take a step back and a deep breath. And we can see from multiple sides of the aisle that there's a lot of dissension about this. And I would like to say I don't believe there is a rule that says we have to pass all of this for the entire city, right? We could take a step back and say, okay, this is a huge, huge, huge potential change for the future. Maybe we don't want to just gamble and just throw our lots at 67,000 people and see what happens. I was looking at the study, right, by the consultancy firm. We did a fine job. But ultimately, as I mentioned before, they didn't compare to cities. They compared to neighborhoods. This is very, very, very rare and extremely abnormal that one would rezone an entire city in one go. And as the city has said, they are going to have to ask for all kinds of amendments and changes to the comprehensive plan for this very reason. So when we look at the study that was done, it was done on using Georgetown, Washington, D.C., a very dissimilar city to Eau Claire, Lincoln Park, sorry, not city, neighborhood, Lincoln Park, Illinois, which is not a city, it is a neighborhood in Chicago, and then also Madison. And I said, Madison, of course, Madison is the most expensive city, so whatever is happening in Madison, rent controls are clearly not working. So I did a little bit of research, and I found this article online from a year ago. It says, why Madison plans proactive zoning, and it has a lot of similar arguments that we've heard from both sides of the aisle tonight. It says the city proposal for Madison's west side have some homeowners feeling this way, that way, it doesn't matter. Other residents worrying the west area plan doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And so basically it talks about the neighborhood in which this singular plan is being proposed. It's not citywide over the entire city. It is a specific neighborhood, and this is normal for zoning, right? Every neighborhood is different, right? We have some that are more industrial, some that are more business, some that bigger houses, some that are more renters, some with more homeowners. Every neighborhood is different. Not that mine is special compared to anybody else's, but they're all different, right? Just like every street is different. Sometimes we have stoplights, yield signs, stop signs, and so on. I would ask you all to take a step back and just think, do we want to experiment on our entire city, or maybe defer to the city and say, what neighborhood might be the best fit for this? Go with that and see what happens. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we have Helene. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. One should not sit so long as we age.
Do some yoga.
All right. I have maps, but this isn't working, so I might just hold them up. But thank you. Helene Smeyer, I forgot. Historic Randall Park neighborhood. First of all, it was concerning to hear your consultants say that your minds are set on the zoning as proposed. But I'm going to give it one more shot. The change that we are proposing to GR is a reasonable compromise. Now, this is what our zoning map looks like. All it means is that you restrict the new homes, which increases your housing supply, to your, connector roads. That's consistent with the comprehensive plan. In reality, this is what our neighbor looks like. This is our land use plan. You can see, but not so well, the brown buildings are already, what do we call them, multifamily. The gray are rooming houses. They're all over the neighborhood. We're an eclectic little place. We're unique. And then if you go to the third one, many of those little yellow houses you see here, are really orange, which means they're rental homes. So what we are proposing is sort of mindful zoning. Be mindful of the persons who cannot afford new and don't want rentals. Be mindful that rehabs of rentals are cheaper than new. Be mindful of your essential workers. Where do they live? Historically, this little section of the neighborhood was the lumber workers. I'm told they stole the lumber to build their homes. I don't know if that's true. I'm over here in a home built by a lumber baron. I am lucky. It is beautiful. So be mindful of the options you are not allowing for the working poor. Be mindful, how about the option of small homes for workers? An area for that is not allowed, developers are not allowed to come and use it for profit. Not-for-profits have moved in there. They have housed the unhoused. We hope to house workers. It's what we do. Students are moving out. Our neighborhood's ready for redevelopment. If you insist on the NR zoning, our imbalance will get worse. If you vote for GR, there is hope for a healthier neighborhood with a lot of unique individual characters. The end.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect timing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neil? Hi, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Neil Hasselwender, 3705 Freedom Drive in the city of Eau Claire. I want to come to you tonight as councilman and say, you got a tough job, but it's a very important job for our young people and people that are trying to get into housing. And if there's anything I can leave with you, is the experience that I've got to see how important that is. In the decade of the 60s, the city of Eau Claire built about 500 housing units. In the decade of the 70s, we built about 500 housing units. And in 1980, and that was 500 housing units per year. In 1980, we built 36. We built 36 because the cost of housing was way the hell out of line. And you can look at where we are today. We're out of line. I happen to have 18 of those housing units out of the 36, and I was a survivor. A lot of my cohorts went by the wayside because nobody could afford housing. And you could try and do everything you can. We were fortunate enough to get a few projects that worked for the seniors that had a few dollars to afford those housing units. But we couldn't sell the housing units that they were in. If they wanted something a little bit smaller, more affordable. So housing affordability has got to be on front and center. I'll give you another example. City of Menominee, 25 years ago. We were over there, we did some building, and we built 11 single-family units in one cluster. It took us over 2 years to sell those in the city of Menominee. Reason being is our infrastructure that we had to put in before we started one excavation was about $15,000 higher than the neighboring town of Menominee. And the town of Menominee is on 3 sides of the city of Menominee. So everybody migrated that was doing housing to the rural area around the city of Menominee. The city of Menominee at that time was building 1 or 0 single-family housing units is all per year. We bought 50 acres over there thinking it was a good place to develop. And after we built 11, and it took 2 years to sell them because of the additional cost, we just left that 50 acres there. We tried to work with the city of Menominee. There was no working with them. They wanted everything done before we started, like I say, doing any excavation. That 50 acres is still sitting in the city of Menominee, next to sewer, ready to develop, developed all the way around it, but the affordability don't work in Menominee for single-family housing units, not even multifamily.
Finish up, please, Neil. Thank you.
And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay. Angela? Pass? Oh, okay. Jennifer?
Thank you. As a Jennifer Peck, 1521 Folsom Street, I am a member of the Sustainability Advisory Board Committee. And as a new appointee, I was surprised to learn that we don't have a tree ordinance, and that's what I came to talk about today. Although I was surprised to find out that we don't have a tree ordinance to preserve and protect our high-value trees, I was happy to be a part of a unanimous vote in favor of our committee endorsing the tree ordinance as written. But I have another role. I've been an educator in this community since, as the kids say, the 1900s. I've taught some of your kids and some of your kids, and here's what they have to say. I spontaneously gave an assignment when we were studying trees, and I said, I want you to write to me and tell me what your favorite tree is. And I gave that assignment year after year after year. I never had an Eau Claire kid come to me and say, I don't have a favorite tree. The kids that never left their bedroom, the kids that were addicted to their video games, the kids that hung out on the corner, and the outdoorsy kids, every single kid has a favorite tree. And that's who we are as Eau Claire people. We value our nature, we value our trees, and I think there is a place in this city for an ordinance that preserves and protects our high-value trees because they're a legacy that we leave for our children. And developers are required to fix the streets and the sidewalks and anything else that they damage when they're putting in those developments. It's a whole lot easier to replace a sidewalk than a tree that started growing before we could make transatlantic phone calls. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I think there's a question for you, Councilmember Mboga.
Yeah. What is your favorite tree?
Okay, you're going to make me cry because my favorite tree was an ash tree. It was the tree that was in the backyard where I raised my babies. And they loved that tree, and they played Ring Around the Rosie around that tree, and they raked up the leaves of that tree, and they jumped in those leaves every year, and that tree's dead. And that's part of the motivation behind this ordinance is we've lost so many ash trees and so many trees just to that emerald ash borer. And if we can preserve the trees that we have, those high-value trees, those big trees, we're not talking about buckthorn, we're talking about the beautiful big trees. And I want my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and when I am dead in compost, I want those kids to have trees to love and protect.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Okay, Travis? Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Travis Kading. I live on Meadow Lane on the south side of Eau Claire. First off, I want to say thank you for all the work that's gone into this. Obviously, this is quite a project and 2.5 years in the making. So just wanted to bring up a couple points that are of concern of mine. I do have concern about the proposed zoning and the future of our city. Everyone keeps talking about affordable housing, but a lot of what is being proposed will actually add on the cost of homeownership. The tree preservation ordinance is proposing that current property owners and homeowners would have to pay the city to remove a tree from their own property. Or we could replant a tree and maybe it doesn't hit the 30% threshold. I will tell you this myself, I love trees. Everybody has their favorite tree. I have my favorite tree. I will say this, for new developments though, and those looking to build on smaller lots in the city, this ordinance will dramatically increase the cost of lots for homeownership and rents and apartment buildings. Like I said, I love trees, but I also understand that when development happens, it's difficult to preserve trees. Or if they are able to build around existing trees, the chance of those trees living long-term can be small. And these added costs are passed on directly to those who will be living in these new homes and apartments. I also understand that there's a proposal regulation on garages. Outside of the downtown area, cars are necessary and are important to our residents. But I also know that that most people aren't willing to pay more money based on the look of their homes, so that the garage isn't in the front as much. It's less expensive on the cost of the home and the lot to set the living area behind the garage, and adjusting this in the code is important in helping ensure the future affordability. I'm concerned that these areas and others will continue to drive the cost of housing up in the Chippewa Valley, and I urge you to adjust the code so you don't adjust the code so you don't increase the price on homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, we have another Jed. I don't know if that was there a second Jed? Maybe the other one was a Judy. And Jed get to. Is there a Jed Burrish? No, that was him. Yeah, okay. All right. So is there a Judy that was maybe here that we thought was Jed? No? Okay. All right. So Jed has spoken. So then, Aislinn? Hi. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Aislinn. I live at 1712 Lindale. My favorite tree is the paper birch. Thank you for considering legislation that would limit the take of ecologically critical species in our region. I was born and raised here in Eau Claire, and now I study biology and ornithology at Cornell University. Growing up, my family lived on the south side near Bollinger Fields in what at the time was considered low-income housing. Near our apartment was a pine tree, so wide that my friends and I could link arms and not reach all the way around. I spent countless hours climbing its branches and sitting in its shade, and as a child, that tree was everything to me. And for my family, being able to escape our reality for even a few moments and watch the fireflies circle the pine tree at night made a difficult life more bearable. Trees are essential to human well-being in the city, not just to cool down a burning planet, but to calm and to inspire curiosity. If you really want to face the climate crisis, you have to do so in your own backyard. You have to allow people from all walks of life the chance to see nature around them where they live. Watching the robins and the blue jays that were drawn to our pine tree inspired me to be the scientist I am today. It isn't fair to deprive other young people of the same opportunity. Maybe you're interested in seeking a profit margin for developers. Maybe you think corralling low-income families into units devoid of life, devoid of trees, while not addressing issues like parking lot requirements or food assistance or higher minimum wage, things that would actually make living in a city more affordable, is good for us. Maybe you want to cut down trees because you think they're your property and your choice, but what they provide, a fresh air and a livable climate, are common resources to all of us. Depriving future generations of clean air because you don't like how a tree looks in your lawn just isn't fair. And some of us have to deal with the ecological repercussions of your actions a lot longer than others. I want to be able to live in my home in Wisconsin. I don't want to see it become devoid of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura? Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and allowing us this opportunity. My name is Laura Lash, Commissioner on the Housing Opportunities Commission. HAWC, as it is known, has twice sent a letter to City Council with suggestions for keeping affordability as an intrinsic intention in the changes to housing requirements in the Century Code update. I had the opportunity to give public comment at the recent Plan Commission meeting and was enthusiastic to see 2 amendments voted through by Plan Commission as recommendations for the code. The Garage Standards Amendment brought forth by Councilmember Brewster clearly exhibits the sensitivity to streamlining cost and modernity, or however you say that allows space for choices and a leaning into affordability. The sensibility and intrinsic nature of Councilmember Brewster's other amendment voted through by Plan Commission, taking the required aesthetic enhancements for new building from quantity 3 out of 7 to 2 out of 7 trends in the direction we need to see, that upfront costs need to be minimized so that the trickle-down cost to prospective first-time home buyers or incoming low to mid-income tenants is kept to a true minimum. I would support the ideas within the amendment Councilmember Schoen has prepared that keeps in mind that any tree preservation at exorbitant cost would be detrimental to the affordability of housing. The owners of single-family homes and those increasing the availability of affordable housing will not have the disposable income to support the costs previously suggested. Anecdotally, as I shared at Plan Commission, I would remind all those involved here that when we are discussing affordability, we are not speaking simply of market rate, amount of housing inventory, or the competitive market. As program coordinator at Home for Good, the clients I speak with daily are moving through a balancing act of resources, services, working income, and the housing market. I work with clients that need their monthly rental costs to be less than market rate, sometimes by only tens of dollars, to make a huge difference in their family budget. We are typically seeing that lower income families will know the correct target size of a home for their family makeup, but on average need that monthly rental cost to be $50 to $150 less than market rate. Any amount of money that can be saved for these folks through sustainable building in the face of climate change, lessened expectations around modern enhancements, and a long view on trickle-down costs that they didn't ask for and can't afford will lessen the financial peril they are in. Thank you for your sensitivity toward the potential families that will live on these lots and in these homes.
Thank you. Okay. Christina? Hi, welcome.
Hello. I'm Christina Thrun, Executive Officer for the Chippewa Valley Home Builders Association and also a resident of District 4 in the city of Eau Claire. So I wanted to talk tonight. There's obviously a lot of things in the code, a lot of things being brought up. And, you know, as a Home Builders Association, as you heard from Pat, housing affordability is one of the key things that we're focused on in ensuring that, you know, all of the people that want to be able to rent or buy a home in the city of Eau Claire are still able to do that. I do know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, developers and profits. And yes, development is a business. It is a for-profit business. There are minimal profit margins that they do have to take into account, but they also take on the risk when they're talking about a new project, right? They're financing it. They're taking on the risk of if that's going to sell in the future. And ultimately, any additional costs are going to get passed on to the end renter or the end homeowner. And so especially when we're talking about multifamily buildings, there's a lot of things in the code that we're concerned about addressing rents, and we support Councilmember Brewster's amendment for that as a one step in helping that, because we know there's a lot of pieces in the code that will add on to rent, as well as to twin homes is a key piece, tri and quadplexes. Those are very much in that affordable rental or homeownership rate as well, for new first-time home buyer housing options as well. It's important that we look at addressing those garage standards for that as well. The other piece to this, I spent a lot of time talking with developers in the area that we haven't necessarily talked to before. You got a letter from Property Minds about some of the impact on multifamily building, and I know a lot of the concerns have been around the tree preservation, and we spent a lot of time talking to people about what that looks like. We understand there's going to be a tree preservation ordinance. We are not saying we don't want that. We love trees too. We want trees. What we're asking for is for you to come to a little bit of a middle ground on that, because the cost of development is going to add on thousands of dollars onto a lot price. It's going to add thousands of dollars potentially onto twin homes. It's going to add on rental costs. So can we come to some sort of a adjustment to individual property owners as well? And I know that the amendments that have been proposed by Councilmember Shane will address some of that, and we do support those amendments in terms of property owner rights, in terms of infill development and lessening the cost on some of those infill lots. We know that the DBH recommended is to go to 14. Yes, would we love to see higher? Yes, but you know what, 12 to 14 is moving that and will help impact some of the affordability concerns that we have. And we are very happy to move that needle as far as we can, because we're just asking for you to work with us to come to some sort of a middle ground on tree preservation, because we do want trees. I want trees in my neighborhood. I have a couple of trees on my lot that are this big around. I like trees too, And I want to make sure that we have a good balance of balancing tree preservation as well as supporting what we need for future housing affordability.
Great,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Perfect timing, good. All right, Vienna? Hi, welcome.
I want to speak as a homeowner, or as a prospective homeowner. Homeownership is a dream, but when you're renting, you have things that it's like, if I owned this place, it would be like this. If I owned this place, I could do this. Well, I buy a house, and I go, monarch butterflies are endangered. Bees are, dying off. I want a pollinator garden. I want a pond. I want to put a gazebo there that I can sit and drink my coffee in the morning by my pond. Okay? Now, I buy this property, and I love trees. Okay? There's, a tree where I'm at now that we would never cut. But there's other trees, and it's like, they're shading out. I can't put in a vegetable garden. I can't put in my pollinator garden unless I cut those trees. Okay? It's going to cost $2,000 to $3,000 to cut the two necessary trees down. Okay? You pass this ordinance, it's going to double that. Okay? Instead of it being $4,000 to $5,000, it's now going to be like $8,000 to $10,000 for me to clear that and put in my pollinator garden. Now, is this good for the community? Is this good for the environment? Yes. Okay? My daughter and son-in-law bought a home. They have children. They wanted an area for the family to meet. They want an area for their kids to play safely, for their kids to bring their friends so they can get together and have a safe place. Is this good for the community? Can they afford to clear those trees out of their yard, to put in the swing set, to put in the swimming pool, to put in, to have that area for the kids to play ball? Okay? We love our trees. You need to trust your community. Drive through the neighborhoods. Since this ordinance came out, I started driving around. The trees being lost, ash borer, that isn't the citizens cutting, that's not property owners cutting their trees. That's a disease. Development is taking out trees. That's not property owners, okay? Why not have an ordinance, we have to clear some trees to build a house. Why not have an ordinance that trees not have to be cut down? It's like, don't clear cut. That's a tree ordinance, okay? Why are you going to put this fine? This is a fine. You're going to fine me to cut a tree. Somebody said a fee. It's not. It's fining me to develop my home into what I want to use it for, okay? And we love our trees. You drive around here and you tell me these property owners don't want trees, that we're just going to randomly spend $2,000 to $3,000 to cut down a tree. We're not. There wouldn't be this many trees in town. You don't have to have this ordinance to keep the trees, okay? You need to protect it, find a sensible plan that when the developer's putting up property, that they can keep some of the trees and not clear cut. That's a tree ordinance, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Melissa? We're here. Then there's another page. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I live on Cameron Street. I'm a relatively new homeowner, and it's exciting to own a home for the first time. I also want to speak on the tree ordinance. I love trees. I'm very aware of their economic value, their landscape value. My dad owned a nursery. I'm well versed in that. I think there's a danger when you look at the ordinance. You're like, this isn't going to affect me. This is going to affect that person over there, but it's not going to affect me because I don't have the right kinds of trees or I have a small enough lot. And I think it's wrong to think that way. There's a lot of lots in Eau Claire that are bigger than 10 or 15,000 square feet. I have one of them, which is one of the reasons I bought the house. I love having a bigger yard. And some people mentioned various species of trees, and I was listening to the different comments. I'm like, oh, good, I have species of trees that won't be covered in this ordinance. You know what, I'm going to speak on this anyway. I have 9 large trees in my yard, and Some of them are not in the best of health. I think one of them was hit by lightning. One of them is rotten inside. One of them is just sick. And when I bought the place, I'm like, you know, I'm going to have to take that one down sometime and that one down sometime, and good grief, maybe that one. And I'm like, I haven't gotten a quote, but I'm like, it's probably going to be $2,000, $3,000, maybe $4,000 to take down this tree. And I don't think it's going to fall on my house, so I'll look at it again next year. I'll look at it again next year. Maybe it's not going to happen for a long time. I don't want to have to call the city forester and get his okay on whether my tree is sick enough to come down when it's time to come down. I'm a busy person. I'm a business owner. I don't have time to do all the paperwork. We talk about deforestation. What has caused that? The emerald ash borer. It was a disaster. It's still going on. And development, and I don't want to say developers are bad, but yes, there's a lot of trees getting taken down and bulldozed for that. I don't believe that the average homeowner is the problem. Why would you pass an ordinance to put a heavy fee or a fine on a homeowner cutting down a tree for a good cause, whether they are putting up a garage or they think it's sick and the forester doesn't? Why would you put a fine on the homeowner for cutting down trees? That's not what's causing the deforestation.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Oh. I don't know, guys. Brad? Okay, last name is maybe W-E-Y-N or W-E-E-Y-N? Oh, Wigman. Bruce. Is he here?
He was upstairs.
Oh, okay. We'll give him a minute. Or actually, we'll go, is Lauren? I think I saw Lauren. Yeah, but we'll go to Lauren, and then we'll see if Bruce comes down, so. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Lauren Lehrman, 719 4th Avenue. You've seen my face, I've talked to you about this. I sent you a very long email. Hopefully you got it and read it. I just wanted to add on, sitting here tonight and hearing the Hildebrands talk about how they moved into their starter home and then moved into a bigger home when they expanded their family, sounds like a dream. And it's the dream that I wanted to live, and I'm stuck in my starter home. Because in Randall Park, 90% of the homes are owned by landlords. And when you try and get a home back from a landlord, it's inflated pricing because they're passing them from landlord to landlord. By adding 3 and 4-plexes into our neighborhoods, we now incentivize those landlords to hang on to those properties, tear them down, and put up a 4-plex where a single-family home once stood. If they've been holding onto that property and turning a profit for 30 years, as some of those developers have, that is pure profit. They can pay for that in cash. I no longer can buy a house that suits my family in my neighborhood. We are stuck with her sleeping on my living room couch until we find a solution on how we can make our home work with 2 kids. It's frustrating because I have voiced these concerns and been told, oh, property values will increase. It'll be so great for you. It's not great for me because I can't sell my house and then move into something that suits me. It's not affordable for anyone at this rate. In addition to that, I really question if these standards will be enforced because I have seen in my 10 years living in Randall Park things that are supposed to be added to properties not added. Please drive down Shipwa Street tomorrow and look at the properties that do not have any plantings alongside of their parking lots. This has been brought to people's attention multiple times. No one enforces it. Randall Park is kind of the little child that gets overlooked because we are 90% rental. And these owners who are, come here. These owners who are out of state or out of touch landlords don't maintain their properties and aren't held accountable. I would love for my property to keep increasing, and I would love to move into a property that is worth the value that I want it to be, that suits my family. That's not going to be accessible. And my house, which is an awesome starter home, will never get into a family's hands at this rate. If we allow for this to happen, Randall Park is going to be even more than 90% rental. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did Bruce make his way down?
We checked upstairs.
Okay, we lost Bruce. Okay. Marge? Hello, welcome.
Hello, I'm speaking as a homeowner in Eau Claire, and I don't see any of my neighbors, never had in the last 40 years, cut down any trees that shouldn't have been cut trees. We've had that oak wilt, it's been awful in our neighborhood, and then the ash borer. And then probably 5 years ago, we had a developer come in and say that, oh, geez, we're going to build 300 apartment units over there at Mount Washington. Okay, they went and they excavated the whole hill, and there's 12 acres total there, and I'd say they took out probably 6 acres of trees, I mean, very nice trees, and then they just left it. They went bankrupt. So now there's nothing. So it's an eyesore for everybody in the neighborhood, and we'd like something to be done with it and taking care of it.
Okay. Anything, you're good? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
And leave the trees alone because, we need
Okay.
them.
Okay, thank you. We're done with that sheet. Kate? Hi, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work that you all have put into the Century Code ordinance. It's been a lot of work, and thank you for hearing all of us today. I arrived in Eau Claire. I decided to live here 15 years ago in 2010, and I truly am not being overly fluffy when I say that I chose Eau Claire out of a long list of schools because of the natural beauty here. I graduated. I stayed in Eau Claire. I bought a house. I bought a second house, and I started a business that's built around bringing people outside and helping people enjoy the natural beauty of our city. And so that's why I think it's so important to protect trees, and I'm here to support the tree ordinance. Trees, beyond the economic, the economic value that I've directly experienced, trees lower our housing costs by shading our homes and keeping our energy bills low. They're proven to increase our mental health and well-being. They clean our water and our air, and they just bring an enormous amount of economic value to our city. And they bring a lot of just societal and quality of life value to us as well, which I think is why it's so important that when those trees are removed, especially in the interest of making a profit, that those who are profiting from the removal of that public good are responsible for mitigating that removal by either planting new trees, which I feel like hasn't been talked about a lot, so I want to really highlight the option to plant new trees, or to pay a fee in order so that the city can plant new trees for that person. I certainly, I think that I also want to say that I think that there's no problem with making a profit. It's how our society is run. I don't think that there's any moral bad to doing that. I'm somebody who makes a profit off of a single rental facility, but I think that it's important that when that profit is made, that we can pay it forward to the community to replace the public good of the trees. I also want to say that I think that, in my time on council, I saw a lot of times when there were developments that were made and decisions that were made about those developments to spend extra money to sort of outside of what the public identifies as a public good, like extra parking. And that cost was very easily done and incurred. And I really hope that we can kind of see trees that way under the public good and worth that public investment. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Kate was the last one signed up, so I will open up to council chambers if anyone else would like to speak on this item. We still have, which is fine. I just say we have 2 more items to go through, but I still welcome anyone to speak on this item because you cannot speak on it later. So, okay, great.
Hey, my name's Harrison. I am also a ISA certified arborist and tree risk assessment qualified with Tree Savvy here in Eau Claire. I grew up all across the country, one of those weird families. And the one thing that was a staple in my childhood was I had pockets full of acorns. It was really uncomfortable, but I enjoyed it. One of these days, I will probably start to grow leaves, and I don't think I'll be that bothered by it. Tree preservation is such a touchy subject. I like to tell a lot of the folks I work with that a bad day at work is a day that I have a chainsaw in hand. However, there are far too many days that I walk up to a property and I am meeting with a client that is concerned about one of their trees. Maybe it's a memorial tree that they want to fertilize or do something to kind of promote its health, but it wasn't planted correctly. And I have to give them the bad news that this tree that they planted for, their loved ones or something needs to come down. It's a difficult day. It's never a fun time. But the biggest thing here is replanting is not enough. As Luke said, how you plant a tree, the most important day in a tree's life is the day it goes in the ground, right? In 2006, the ISA released a publication that was highlighting a study that found that 93% of trees planted by professionals are not planted correctly. That's where we as arborists come in. Ideally, an arborist should be there for the birth of a tree, the first day of the tree, and the last day of its life. But more often than not, when people plant trees with good intentions, they don't do it correctly, leads to problems down the line, that's where we're contacted. When it comes to this tree preservation, there's so much subjectivity to it. It's species specific, it's different physiological functions of individual species. Sudden branch drop, it's a phenomenon that we don't really understand with certain species of trees, where it could be a beautiful day. I've witnessed it myself, it's kind of freaky. It could be sunny, blue skies, 78 degrees, and all of a sudden an oak will just drop a branch on a house. No signs of symptoms of stress, anything like that. That's really difficult to try to say that you need to preserve this tree or pay a fee or replant with X amount, when sometimes you just don't know if a tree is going to fail. And that's my biggest concern, is the subjectivity, where you have one, maybe two individuals walking up to a tree with their limited perspective or maybe their set experiences, that they diagnose something incorrectly and something occurs, somebody gets damaged, some property gets damaged. As Luke said, where does that liability go? Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, yep, come on. Just want to state your name and address, please.
I'm Sue Waits, and I'm at 540 Foxmore. And I would like to speak on behalf of the Jonah Environmental Task Force. And we're a group of individuals come together, and many of them have different issues, from waste management to tree preservation, but ultimately everyone's concerned about the climate. And personally, I live on the south side, and we work with Sustainability Advisory Committee, and we're really supportive of all the climate initiatives we hear about. Climate neutrality, we work with the county. But then I go down Gulf Road, and there is a beautiful, it was an old white house, lots of trees, all the trees are gone, and there is now an apartment complex there with only asphalt, tiny little trees, and rock. And I just think to myself, how did that development pass when we're concerned about climate as a community? I mean, obviously, it's asphalt, rock, and then the road. That just doesn't match to me. Go a little further along, there's the new Jimmy John's and the Scooters Coffee. Again, all the trees taken out there. Again, asphalt parking lot. Everyone knows that's adding to the heat, climate issues. I know there's lots of issues, but we talk one way, but what we're seeing in the community is different. So I really support the tree preservation. Again, many people, homeowners have talked, but it's more this kind of where you just kind of cut them all down and you replace it with asphalt and rock landscaping. So again, the Jonah Environmental Task Force strongly supports the tree preservation.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in council chambers like to speak? there's one. Hi, welcome. Just want to
Hi.
state your name and address, please.
Nick Cernhaus, 433 Gulf Terrace, owner of Keller Williams Realty Diversified, one of the owners. I would like to thank you for all your efforts on this. This is going to be a challenge for you all. I work every day with first-time homeowners. I've been at the WRA at the state legislature where they call us in every year, and their primary focus the last 2 to 3 years has been how do we keep costs down? Look at all the stuff that you're doing or is being proposed to not do that. We don't need a fine. We don't need, if you want to have an inspector come out and check a tree, fine, don't pass the cost on to everybody else. Please look at 15 foot in front of a twin home will make a huge difference for these first-time home buyers. That is the only affordable home right now, in my mind, that a first-time homeowner can buy that is brand new, that meets their financial abilities. Right now, I've had 2 clients that couldn't even park their garage or their truck in their garage because the garage was too short. If you give me a little bit more feet, I can't tell you what the developer's going to do, but I sure hope they add 2 more feet or 4 more feet onto the garages so these trucks fit in with the ability to walk in front and behind them and not have to open the door to get outside. These are some things that I see just as a person in the community that I would like to say, please don't add more cost to these people trying to afford a home. You guys are tasked with this. Let's not add more cost to what doesn't need to be done. The trees, it's really towards developers. It's not towards everybody else. It's towards the developers. If you're going to develop, the city knows if they're going to put a road through, winding around all the trees doesn't work. If you're going to make a development, you've got to plan it, you've got to lay it out, you got to clean it out, and then make them put trees in afterwards around the houses if you want to have some ordinance that regenerates trees. I get the volume, I get the size, I get all of that. But penalizing people and trying to put a fee on it, it's not doing what we want to do as a greater community. It's not what your state legislatures are working on. They're decreasing costs, and we're here proposing increased costs. It just doesn't make sense to me. We're fighting each other. Let's figure out how we can work together. I think the ordinances all can be done. I just don't think they have to be so costly to everybody. So please take that into consideration, and thank you for all your work over the last 2 years. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Okay, anyone else in council chambers? Hi, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Joe Maurer, 611 Fountain Street, Eau Claire. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what I've heard. I appreciate very much the different perspectives and everything that council is taking in here. But I wanted to speak specifically because I've heard from a few speakers tonight that said that, well, the trees are probably going to die anyway. It's a common practice. I've professionally worked as a landscape architect. What you include in your design set plan is a tree protection plan. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it when you're developing, when you can see where you're not grinding up the roots or you're not, building intentionally next to a tree. There are best practices to follow. So I would actually encourage that the, unless it is listed and I didn't see it, that it's not strong enough, that we need to include tree protection plans as part of the submittal process when developers develop. You don't need to clean out the whole site. If you have to, then maybe another developer who has a little bit more creativity could do that. So I just wanted to put that out there as a point to take in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Hi, welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Berge. Thanks, City Council. And I
want to thank Mr. Noel for his work on the zoning overhaul and all of the consultants and all of you for being a part of it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of topics I want to try to touch on here. My name is Jeremy Gregert. I live at 1725 9th Street. So I'm pretty supportive of the tree preservation, focus of this. I think there's some details that I missed the introduction, so I don't know what is actually being, what the current debate is exactly, but I think, the fee is something that hasn't been set yet, is my understanding. And I think that it could be lowered as a starting point to be able to make sure we're, keeping in mind affordability. So maybe it could be $200 per inch. But I think like some of the other pieces, like the 12-inch, I think we should start with that. And a lot of these things can be changed over time, and including the list of trees that would be included as high-value trees. So I see this as being something that really starts this has started a community conversation that actually has been going on for years, and we've needed things like parkland dedication to be able to pay for our parks and maintain our parks for years. It's also a method to preserve trees. They kind of intersect with each other as policy ideas, because if a developer is going to be avoiding taking down important trees, they can have that be a part of a park or a public space within their development. So I think there's gonna need to be some adjusting that goes along with all this, and I think you all know that. But I think that should maybe help the public, participate in the ongoing, focus of this project that is the city of Eau Claire. Sort of on the affordability concern, I feel like one of the pieces of discussion has been around the garage, design and how far it protrudes in front of the house. Some people would call it a garage snout if it's 15 feet in front of someone's house, instead of having a porch, or instead of having, a place that you can interact with your neighbors in a more human level. But I just want to, highlight that the garage doesn't have to be a part of a design. My house doesn't have a garage. That's how I can fit 5 large trees in my yard and a couple boulevard trees. And I think, if we're really concerned about affordability, we need to make sure we're not assuming we need to have a big garage or a garage that can fit like a huge pickup truck either necessarily. So yeah, just some random thoughts in 3 minutes.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see, anyone else in council chambers like to speak on this item? It's not spoken. Anyone? Okay. All right, that's your last chance. Then we will move on. I'm not seeing anyone. There's no one else upstairs, you said? Okay. Great. Okay, so we will close the Century Code Update public hearing. And then we'll go to updating tree definitions. And this is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 8.20, trees, to include a new definition of heritage trees and high-value trees. This is proposed by Council Vice President Worthman and Council Member Miller. So I'll kick it over to Council Vice President Worthman. Okay. Didn't have enough time?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President Berge. So the next item on our agenda is focused on 2 definitions that we're going to be considering tomorrow night during our legislative meeting. And these connect to both the Century Code and to an item that we will be seeing next, which is around expanding the purview of our Waterways and Parks Commission to include a urban forestry charter. And so alongside that are these two definitions to be added to 8.20, our tree code. The first one regards heritage trees, and this definition is proposed to include all trees that have exceptional size or age, trees over 30 inches or greater, measured at 4.5 dBH, or trees estimated to be over 100 years old, a historical or cultural significance, a tree with great ecological importance, rare native species, keystone habitat, or trees that are critical to maintaining biodiversity, and lastly, exceptional aesthetic value. So just for clarity, this amendment, as I understand it and have corresponded with our city staff, would essentially designate trees on public land, so city-owned land, our right-of-ways, like the boulevards, automatically would be considered heritage trees if they fit this definition. This does not apply to private property and people who have such large trees on private property. But I will share that there have been ideas of people voluntarily nominating their own trees potentially as heritage trees, just as something to celebrate. The other piece of this is the high-value tree definition, which will also be voted on tomorrow. And this specifically relates to our Century Code, but also to provisions in the Waterways and Parks update, and will correspond to a recommended tree list, which, as I understand, is not finalized, but would be in the next couple of months. So if anyone has any questions, these are really born out of the other two ordinances that we're talking about tonight, that we, in order to kind of move forward on either of those, had to update another part of the code with these two provisions.
Great.
That covers it.
Okay, does Councilmember Miller, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Council President. Vice President Worthman kind of covered all the points. It's, while we're thinking about trees, this is, some people spoke about how other cities have tree boards, and we don't really have a tree board here, but Vice President Worthman and I were discussing with different commissions, seeing where some of the oversight that a tree board would have, or not necessarily oversight, but avocation that a tree board would have, and it seemed like it fit good with the Waterways and Parks. So this is a kind of two-step process. Part two is giving definitions to these trees, and then part three would incorporate these tree definitions into an expanded scope of Waterways and Parks.
Okay, great. Any questions from council members? Mover and seconder of the Councilmember Schoen.
Thank you, Councilors. I have a question, but I think just for clarity, because I think the mover and seconder, we're kind of talking about both pieces of this at once, but I have a question on agenda item 3, so should I hold that for the next item, or are we asking questions about both right now?
Could you wait till we get to item number 3? Okay. Any other questions on updating tree definitions? Okay. All right. So you guys are good. So then we'll go to the public comment hearing part, and we have one person who signed up. Jim. Is Jim still here? Okay. Jim left. Okay. All right. Anyone in council chambers like to speak on this? On tree definitions? Okay. Not seeing anyone. Tree people? No? Okay. All right. Oh, see? Yes.
My favorite tree is a Dawn Redwood. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll have to Google that one. Nice. All right. Well, if there's no other comments, we will move on to item number 3. So this is Waterways and Parks Commission. This is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 2.64, City Waterways and Parks Commission, to amend its name and advisory function to include urban forestry on certain public and private property. And the same mover and seconder is on this one as well. So Council Vice President Worthman and Councilmember Miller. So Council Vice President, you want to?
Thank you, Council President Berge. So just to give background on this as well, there have been conversations for the past couple of years on expanding a more formal role of one of our boards, committees, and commissions around oversight and I would say, input on decisions around our public trees specifically. We had conversations from last summer going forward with our city forester, Matt Stoudemire, with members of different committees and commissions, with former council member Gregor, who is here this evening, and others, to try and figure out what is the best way to do this. Through a lot of those conversations, the Waterways and Parks seem to be the best fit for taking on the added responsibility of helping to guide and encourage better policy and support our head of forestry, Matt Stoudemire, in the work that he does. And so that's what is proposed here today. There are a couple things I want to bring to your attention. I think first and foremost is that our tree code 8.20 is going to need a number of updates. It hasn't been updated extensively since the 1970s. And so there are a few things in there that will be, I think, looked at, and this commission can help advise the city council on what good policy could look like in coordination with our city forester and city staff. The second piece of this is there are sort of similar to how Waterways and Parks reviews projects that are near waterways or parks. This code calls out a number of instances where infrastructure projects in our city, or a new trail or a new pavilion or something along those lines disrupts or could impact a number of trees. It spells out when those instances would come in front of this citizen commission. And if you'll see here in section E, one of those is that there are 5 high-value public trees that would be impacted. If there are 10,000 square feet of canopy that were to be impacted, or if there's a designated heritage tree that is impacting the process. Lastly, J and K and L sections are really around, as I mentioned before, sort of suggesting and supporting good policy. K is around updating the city's tree list, preferred species list. And then L is developing and reviewing urban forest policies for our consideration. So that is what this updated ordinance would do. And I want to add that the Waterways and Parks Commission had been involved in 2 separate occasions, and in their last meeting voted unanimously to support expanding the scope. I'm sure you're going to have other questions, but that's the basics of what this does.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Miller, do you have anything to add?
Council President, thank you. No, everything was already covered.
Okay, great. Councilmember Schoen?
Thank you, Council President. So I know this was discussed during the most recent Waterways and Parks Commission meeting that you referenced, Vice President Worthman, but especially with some of the comments and feedback I think I've heard from the public tonight just about how complicated and nuanced tree care can be, I'm wondering with these added responsibilities, especially related to advising City Council on policies, reviewing and recommending updates to city approved tree species list, tree care guidelines, et cetera, planting standards, for the portion of the ordinance that defines the composition of the commission, have you considered, or could you respond to just kind of the question of whether you would be open to the idea of requiring at least one member of this commission to have a forestry background of some type?
Yeah,
Yeah, Vice President.
Thank you, Council President. Councilmember Schoen, that's an excellent question. That was one of the discussions of Waterways and Parks. It was also a discussion that Councilmember Miller and I had a number of times. And our committees and commissions handle this differently from committee to commission. So for some, there's a strong emphasis that, so how do I say this? For some of our committees and commissions, it will name a number of different expertise that we hope to see on the commission. And in some cases, it'll say it's sort of required that there be these different perspectives. On some commissions, we encourage that we have, for affordable housing, it might be we encourage that we have representation from lived experience, finance, builders, et cetera, but it's not guaranteed. And then some just leave it open. And those that leave it open, the hope is that our advisory commission on appointments looks at what expertise exists or doesn't exist on the commission and populates it with people who have that expertise. So I think we're open to that kind of change. One of the comments we heard during Waterways was that potentially if we don't have someone apply that has that expertise, then we leave a seat open. And so that was a kind of a concern that they shared. But I think there was discussion on both sides of that issue about whether to specify certain expertise. I can say that the idea here would be that as members term out, that new people would be added that obviously bring a wealth of knowledge about trees onto this commission would be the idea. So.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Councilmember Otto.
Oh, thank you, President Berge. Just a logistical question, like say hypothetically we don't pass updating tree definitions, would we have to make an amendment to the amendment for the Waterways and Parks Commission to adjust for the definition of high-value tree? Do you think?
Okay. Deputy City Attorney Stromberger.
It's quite a mouthful, I know.
Yes, that's okay.
I would want to include then a definition within the Waterways and Parks ordinance because it wouldn't be defined elsewhere in the code then. So it would be open to interpretation what that meant. So I would recommend then an amendment to the proposed Waterways and Parks amendment, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Not that we know whether or not that'll happen.
We don't. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Yeah, so we'll close that item. So that's the end of our official public hearing. And then, oh, I'm sorry. Nope, you're right. Got all excited to move. No, oh, but there's no one signed up. That's what tripped me up. So is there anyone that would like to speak, though, on this item? Oh, great. Okay. So state your name and address, please.
Yes. I'm Dr. Crispin Pierce. I live at 1314 South Farwell Street in Eau Claire here. As you probably know, I'm a professor of environmental health and also the founding member of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I wanted to speak tonight to the two things being considered in regards to the definition of high-value trees, as well as the replacement rate of 30% for wooded lots that are converted to buildings, to construction. I believe.
Just a minute, sir. I think we've already spoken on that. Is that, or we've already? So we've, so you wanted to speak on the Century Code update? Is that?
As I read the agenda today, it looked like the second item was the update to the tree code. So that's why I saved my comments for this moment.
Yeah. Well, if council doesn't have an objection, then we can hear. Okay.
Great. I appreciate your understanding. Sure. So the two provisions are very consistent with codes around city ordinances in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So, for example, the ordinance suggesting that 12 inches or greater would be designated high-value trees is consistent with the city of Onalaska, which has the same standard for deciduous trees. They actually use an 8-inch standard for coniferous trees. Fitchburg and Edina, Minnesota, they actually go further to look at 6 inches and 5 inches tree diameter breast height as significant trees for consideration. And in terms of the replacement rate, I know the proposal now is 30% replacement rate. The cities of Mequon and Edina actually require 75% replacement rate. So I encourage your consideration of this important step forward. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay, anyone like to speak on, so this, too many papers. So the third item with the Waterways and Parks Commission. Oh, yeah, Christina, hi.
Yes. All right, Christina Theron, and this one's kind of going off the cuff a little bit, but just in response to what Council Member Shane's question was with with regards to the makeup of this commission. I think it's, if with trees being such an important part, I think it's good to find where that lives within the commissions and that there is some sort of oversight in looking at this. But it's interesting because in the last, week, I've had a lot of phone calls from people that work in the tree field. I talked to someone for 45 minutes today that was a certified arborist that works remotely, that is based for business out of Des Moines, and I've been learning a lot about things I knew nothing about with regards to trees, as I'm sure all of you are through this process as well. And looking at what's written in here as to advising council on policies to protect trees, right-of-ways, looking at review and recommending updates to the tree species list, tree care guidelines, planting standards. I really think it's important that we ensure that there's somebody who serves on the commission that has a background and experience in trees to understand all the different pieces. Even today, the two companies that spoke and with regards to trees are talking about things that are really getting in the weeds, and I think that expertise would be really important to have on the commission. So that's the one thing I wanted to comment on, is that I think that having somebody from that background would be a great asset to that commission then.
Great, thank you. We didn't even use the timer with you, and I think it was under 30. All right, anyone else would like to speak on this item? All right. Oh, see? Yeah. Hi, welcome again.
Hello, yes, Joe Mauer. I just want to speak on it because I'm on the City Waterways and Parks Commission. It was brought up to me earlier, first of all, that it's really a mouthful, City Waterways, Parks and Commission, and Urban Forestry. While I support bringing this in, maybe we can come to some understanding of a reasonable name. Secondly, I would say that in my time in waterways and with urban forestry present in the last, I think, 3 or 4 meetings, it was our understanding that adding this responsibility actually is a support for a lot of the situations that have been brought up. And that support is specifically having to do with that they have, it's been brought up about the understaffing. So my hope is that we can work together with this on Parks and Waterways to prevent situations that, by example, I remember on the west side, it's just like some developer came in, wiped out everything, and then was gone. And we want to act in good faith with the community. I would love to see more development within the city. I like density. I think congestion is actually good for cities. But I think that we're Eau Claire, and we'd like to push the envelope and keep it clean, green, and sustainable as much as possible. So I do support this advisory function of advising on urban forestry. The last thing I'll say is I have a minute. About this, only an expert can deal with the problem. We need a forestry. I worked in the field of landscape architecture. Really what it's about, it's below ground. As much as I love to save every tree, I realize, as others have pointed out, sometimes the root systems are just completely trash, and it's really, you can't save certain trees. So it's about that intersection of infrastructure with the green infrastructure that we're addressing on waterways, not necessarily being a arborist to me. So
Okay,
that's
great.
it. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else like to speak on this? Okay. Then I'm really going to end it, this one, but then we're going to move to the public comment period. So we have more. And we do have people signed up, if I find that sheet. Yep, right here. So there are slightly different rules for the public comment period. So these are things that are not on the agenda. So please do not comment on anything that we've talked about previously, because these things are not noticed that you will be bringing up. So 3 minutes still to speak. Let's see, actually, let me find. So 3 minutes to speak, one time, which we talked about. Do not comment on any previous agenda items. This time is not for personal complaints of city personnel, elected officials, or any person affiliated with the city. Then council members are actually not allowed to ask questions during this time or comment, because again, these items are not noticed that people will bring up. And then this time will also last for 20 minutes if need be. So Yeah, with that, I do have 3 people signed up if they're still here. So, and then I'll open it up to the council chambers. So first, I have Joe Mauer. You're gonna pass? All right. I mean, you're 1 for 1, but okay. All right. Joe's passing. Jordan? Is Jordan here? No? Oh. Oh, Jordan left. Okay. Sam? Ah, Sam's here. Hi, welcome.
Well, thank you for the welcome. I'm Dr. Sam Schwartz. I have lived in Eau Claire for 10 days. And so it has been wonderful.
Wow.
This is a remarkable community. You know, there's a lot of passion here, and I'm excited to be here. I am here because I landed my dream job as a professor of computer science at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Before coming here, I was appointed by Governor Kotek of the state of Oregon, where I did my PhD, to one of these types of boards that helps oversee the websites for the state of Oregon. I'm a big believer in civic engagement and, you know, rolling up my sleeves and asking, how can I help my community wherever I live? And so I wanted to just introduce myself to all of you, say I'm here, and then also to ask or just make public comment about something that I think is important to all city councils, all governments, all large organizations about cybersecurity. There are 4 risk areas about cybersecurity that are generally associated with IT failure, whether that's due to intentional cyber attack or some sort of operational negligence. And those 4 risk areas are reputational risk, risk of financial loss, risk of data loss, and risk of system downtime. And so when I come to, city councils or governor or, county boards or whatnot, what I am curious about is how often do these governing boards or board of directors, have this conversation? And is it, once every year or so, once every 2 years, and just see if that's something on the agenda. The questions that I bring to the table when I sit on these boards are, what's the plan to respond to some major cyber security attack or system failure? Who's the point person for the press? When they happen, who responds to the public? What does that process look like? In terms of financial risk, if there is some sort of, what's the plan to immediately halt all financial transfers from one place to the other? Regarding data loss, does your organization have backups? And what does that look like? Or system downtime? If we got hit by a meteor and everything, got flattened, how long would it take us to get back up? So anyway, just things for us to ponder. Wanted to say thank you so much. I'm not sure all city council meetings are quite as engaged as this one. I was not expecting to be here for 3 hours, but
I'm very impressed you're still here. Yes.
Well, and I will at least end with my favorite tree. My favorite tree is a type of computational data structure called a binary search tree. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was amazing. All right, anyone else? Even though, I was like, that's going to be hard to follow, but okay. No, that's fine. Welcome.
Hello. Should I state my name and address again?
Yeah.
Okay. Kate Felton, 1140 City View Drive. On tomorrow's agenda is a report for Downtown Eau Claire Incorporated. And so I'm here to support DECI and the work that they do as a downtown small business. I just wanted to add my perspective of the value that DECI brings to me. There have been a couple times in the last year in particular that I've really felt that DECI is doing a service that is really unique to that organization. Earlier this year, when a really unexpected road project came to my street, DECI really coordinated the flow of information from the city engineer department to downtown businesses and helped us work out some ideas that sort of made the impact a little bit softer. DECI also helped connect me with a muralist who was looking for a spot for a mural and helped us kind of work through some challenging conversations of like trying to figure out what this would look like. They plan events and bring like like tens of thousands of people downtown to see my logo and my storefront and to patronize my business. And in a time when truly being a small business owner and trying to run about small business is extremely difficult, I'm honestly still not sure if it's like a financial viability to be a business owner and try to make any money from it in a downtown storefront business. It's really a resource that is so invaluable. And as somebody who spent 9 years on the city council, super knowledgeable of the city operations and the vast amount of work that the city staff do here, and also now as a small business owner, I think I have a unique perspective in saying that I truly don't think that the value and the services that DECI bring are services that would be possible from the city. Just the really very direct touch that DECI is able to do. And so I know that that DECI is going to be asking for continued partnership and continued support and continued funding. And so I hope that you all will consider that and consider continuing on with the partnership that has existed for decades and was reaffirmed in 2019. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to speak during our public comment period? Oh, we got one more. All right.
Getting inspired here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Gregert, 1725 9th Street. Yeah, I was actually on the DECI board in 2007. And so I want to reflect on that a little bit. Like, I was just out of college, and the city had just helped to create Downtown Eau Claire Incorporated. And, like, it's kind of exciting that they're in this new phase, I guess, because it could mean a bunch of new possibilities. So I just joined the board for Friends of the Library, the L.A. Phillips Memorial Public Library, and we joined DECI like this month, just because, you know, I think it's an all hands on deck thing for our community to rally around our downtown and find different ways to help people, whether they're business owners or people that use our downtown or visitors, to really like make sure we're continuing to innovate, making sure that we are, you know, finding ways to continue to redevelop or reimagine the public spaces and the private spaces, everything in between. So just wanted to, since we're kind of on this train, I thought I would show my support for that organization and encourage other entities and members of the public to figure that out as well. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Oh, Joe changed his mind.
Since
Welcome.
we're talking about DECI, I've actually worked with Downtown Eau Claire Inc. through, they facilitated this public-private relationship with the city, and I really appreciated their professionalism and forward thinking in terms of having a public-facing project that's paid for by the bids, and creating a way for them to communicate. Specifically, I should mention the project. So the one that I completed recently is a tunnel which was really ugly at the south end of Mayo. If you haven't seen it, it was just finished before the 4th of July, and that's now nicer to walk through. And the other project was a downtown kiosk, which is public-facing and is actively used as a bulletin board, and it's got some garden planting programming. So I appreciate having them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone? All right. Well, then, this meeting is adjourned. Yes, now we can clap.